Chapter 508, You guys are keeping his life? Chapter 508, You guys are keeping his life? The outcome is about to be decided. That Dragon King will be killed soon. He brought about his own demise. If the Lord of Sea Serpent Island can maintain the huge 100-meter sea serpent absorption for half an hour, he could destroy an entire city. The might of the sea serpent absorption is even more terrifying than a level 10 typhoon. Any creature that is sucked in will be ground to shreds. Haha, kill the Dragon King. Since he's not joining the alliance of the orthodox sects, he will become a potential issue for us in the future. It's best to kill him now. He is crazy to want to fight the Lord of Sea Serpent Island. On the Donghua ritual ground, the crowd was waiting to see the clash of the huge 8-meter Inferno Divine Dragon and the several 100-meter Sea Serpent absorption. Subconsciously, many of them were smirking. With regard to the newly established Saint-class Dragon Sect and the domineering behavior of the Dragon King, all of the other sacred sects didn't have a good impression. In fact, it was more of fear. They were fearful of the strength of the Dragon Sect and the Dragon King. If the Dragon King was to be killed here, they would be glad to witness it. Wuxia heard the discussion below him and ruthlessness beamed in his eyes. Kill me? He squinted his eyes and flames erupted from his body like a volcano. Die. Sea Serpent Absorption, Sea Serpent Crush. Hai Jiao stood in the eye of the Sea Serpent Absorption and the horns in his hands were rotating rapidly. He waved his arms and the Sea Serpent Absorption clashed towards Wuxia. Rumble. Endless explosions erupted as Wuxia charged into the humongous Sea Serpent Absorption. Flames gathered and formed dragon scales which covered his body. Water energy coalesced and formed sharp objects which resembled cow horns and shot towards Wuxia's body. Terrifying shockwaves shook the entire sky. The clash of water and fire had resulted in a large patch of ominous clouds forming over the skies. Countless water droplets were gathering on the ominous clouds. When I transform into a dragon, I can even defeat budding realm experts overseas that possess battle techniques. A person who hasn't reached the budding realm in the underworld like you would be no match for me. Before the cow horns formed from water energy could crash into Wuxia, they were instantly vaporized. Wuxia swung his dragon claws directly at the body of Hai Jiao. What? When Hai Jiao saw Wuxia breaking through and his sea serpent absorption not dealing any damage to him, he was astonished. Shit. Seeing Wuxia charging towards him rapidly, Hai Jiao could feel his heart wrenching. Grr. Sea Serpent Strike. Hai Jiao opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of blood on the horns in his hands. Instantly, they glowed an even brighter shade of blue. Within the Sea Serpent Absorption, thousands and thousands of horns gathered together to form a terrifying huge horn. Extravagant and impractical. Your battle technique is a far cry from those experts overseas. Wang Dehai lowered his head slightly after seeing Hai Jiao's attack. His dragon horns glowed with a dull shade of red as he charged directly towards the giant cow horn formed from water energy. Bam! The dragon horns penetrated through and Wuxia didn't stop for a moment. He immediately swung his dragon claws at Hai Jiao. Arg! Two wretched cries came from the sky. Hai Jiao's body was falling towards the ritual ground of Donghua Sacred Sect at a terrifying speed. Boom! A loud explosion reverberated from the ritual ground. In the middle of the ritual ground, a huge 5-meter hole that was over a dozen meters deep could be seen. Around it, a network of terrifying cracks had surfaced. You? Defeating me in 5 moves? At this moment, Wuxia's voice resounded from the sky. How can this be possible? It can't be. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island is defeated. The second strongest expert of the underworld is defeated. SSS. This. In the Donghua ritual ground, everyone was in disbelief when they saw the figure in the deep hole and Wuxia in the sky. The attack that the Lord of Sea Serpent Island had released previously was capable of destroying heaven and earth. Yet he had been defeated. Defeated with relative ease. If everyone had gotten it right, the two of them had just exchanged 4 moves. No one would have expected the Lord of Sea Serpent Island to be defeated in 4 moves. This made them look exceptionally bitter. The Lord of Sea Serpent Island, who they had high hopes for, the second strongest expert in the underworld and the one who was even stronger than all of them, was defeated by the Dragon King. A red flame was emitted from Wuxia's body. He lowered his head and looked down on the Lord of Sea Serpent Island who was lying in the deep hole. Kill me? With what you are capable of. Wang Xian's emotionless voice rang throughout the entire Donghua ritual ground. His lips curved into a smirk as he descended towards the ground. No. This isn't possible. My father wouldn't lose. He couldn't have been defeated. The young lord of Sea Serpent Island was in denial as he screamed in horror. Cough cough. At this moment, a violent cough came from the deep hole and a figure crawled out of it gradually. At this moment, the lord of Sea Serpent Island was in wretched shape. At his chest, TWP deep wounds had even reached his bones. Around the wound, the tissue was burnt black. There were still traces of fire sparks burning. His hair was scattered and the neatly trimmed beard was now torched. He looked extremely pathetic at this moment. As compared to the domineering and majestic look previously, it was as though this was another person. Hai Jiao's legs were shivering a little while he stared at Wang Xian. His expression had changed drastically. When your son tried to kill me some time ago, your outcome had been decided. Wang Xian landed on the ground and stared at the Lord of Sea Serpent Island with smiles. Besides that, I'm not the brazen one. It is you who are. Killing me within 5 moves? How ironic. As Wang Xian spoke, a fire sword appeared in his hand. The fire sword rotated gradually as it slashed towards the head of Hai Jiao in an instant. Fear gleamed in the eyes of the Lord of Sea Serpent Island as his body shivered. Bam. Dragon King, the outcome has been decided. Let's end it here. At this moment, a sword-shaped walking stick appeared before the fire sword and stopped it in the process. The voice of Wuxia reached him. Wang Xian squinted his eyes, turned over and looked fearlessly at Wuxia who was on the elevated stage. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian asked Wuxia coldly. With diabolism on the rise and chaos everywhere, the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is part of our alliance of the orthodox sects. You are going to stop me from killing him? Wang Xian interrupted him and questioned once again. Dragon King, this is the territory of our Donghua sacred sect and the Lord of Sea Serpent Island is a guest of ours. He is also the main force in the alliance of the orthodox sections. You can't kill him. Nie Wuxuang looked solemnly at Wang Xian and replied. In that case, do you know the price of protecting him? Wang Xian stared harshly at Nie Wuxuang. Price? What? Could it be that your dragon sect would make us, Donghua sacred sect, your enemy and become the enemy of the alliance of the orthodox sects? Hearing Wang Xian's highly confrontational demands, Nie Wuxuang pulled a long face and answered. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua sacred sect, who want my dragon sect as your enemy. Chapter 509, There's no rest for an enemy except death. Chapter 509, There's no rest for an enemy except death. It isn't I who wants you as my enemy. It is you, Donghua sacred sect, who want dragon sect to become your enemy. Wang Xian's icy tone resonated in the ritual ground, causing everyone to gasp in terror. All the Saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. Just as always. When Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan heard that, they shook their heads at Wang Xian who was glowering at Donghua sacred sect. As always, he was fearless of any forces and existences. Sacred followers guild elders kill. Disciples of medical saint sect kill. The entire medical saint sect, annihilate. Chao clan annihilate. Now he tried to kill Hai Jiao, the second strongest expert of the underworld, and make himself an enemy with Donghua sacred sect. All the surrounding Saint-class forces stared at Wang Xian with flickering eyes. None of them uttered a word. They finally got some understanding of how this Dragon King worked. Do not provoke me. Whoever provokes me, there is only one word: battle. Nie Wuxia and the bunch of experts from Donghua sacred sect were infuriated as they exploded bouts of murderous aura. So what if Donghua sacred sect is making an enemy with dragon sect? Said Nie Wuxia as he stared daggers at Wang Xian with eyes full of coldness and killing intent. There's no rest for an enemy except death. If Donghua sacred sect is determined to protect Hai Jiao today, we'll see each other on the battlefield. Wang Xian answered coldly as he glared at Nie Wuxia without wanting to lose out. Fine. What a brazen fellow. Since you're insolent, you shall stay here today. A Dan Realm old man beside Nie Wuxia bellowed as he gave out a daunting radiance that pointed at Wang Xian. No rest for us? A dragon sect dared to have no rest with Donghua sacred sect? Another Dan Realm expert stood up with double blades hung at his waist. The moment he exuded his aura, the two blades gave out a buzzing sound. 3 Dan Realm experts let out a daunting vibe trying to oppress Wang Xian. Hehe, it looks like you guys already made a decision. Wang Xian exhibited a contemptuous smile. I have no grudges with Donghua Sacred Sect. But since you guys want to make an enemy with Dragon Sect, we'll gladly accept. And, as he spoke, he stared at the three old men. You guys aren't my match yet. Wang Xian swept his disdainful gaze across all the people from Donghua Sacred Sect. Eventually he stopped at Hai Jiao and curled his lips. Since Donghua Sacred Sect is protecting you this time, I'll kill you another time. Hehe, rest assured that it will not be too long. As he spoke, Wang Xian spun around looking slack. He commanded the rest of the Dragonians, let's go. All the people from Donghua Sacred Sect clenched their fists tightly with glistening eyes. They were hesitating as to whether they wanted to strike. At this time, Wang Xian suddenly whirled around and looked across all the hundreds of Donghua Sacred Sect experts. If you guys cannot keep me here today, then Dragon Sect will be your nightmare from now on. Haha. Wang Xian chortled as he stalked out. Upon hearing Wang Xian, people from Donghua Sacred Sect were looking dreadful. Radiance flickered in Wuxia's eyes as he held the sword-like truncheon tightly in his hand. The atmosphere suddenly froze as all the surrounding Saint-class forces watched with solemn expressions. Apparently, Donghua Sacred Sect was out to protect Hai Jiao, and they had completely angered the Dragon King. Besides, Dragon King had made it clear that the Donghua Sacred Sect was going to make an enemy with them. There is no rest for an enemy except death. If it were other sacred sects who said the same thing, they probably would be contemptuous. But this was said by the Dragon King, the one who would slaughter anyone who provoked him. No one would doubt what the Dragon King said. Keep him here, the old man beside Wuxia gritted his teeth and said with murderous eyes. Wuxia darkened his expression as he looked at all the Dan Realm experts of sacred sects. All the Dan Realm experts of the sacred sects watched indifferently as it was not their business. Since sect leader is not around, we might not be able to stop him given our combined strength. Wuxia clenched his fist tightly and spoke in a dull voice. The strength that the Dragon King had demonstrated was compelling, such that everyone was wary of him. He used 4 strokes to beat the second strongest man in the underworld. The rest of the sacred sects dared not meddle in this due to Wang Xian's daunting combat power. Unlike Donghua Sacred Sect, they did not have the strongest expert of the underworld in their sections. Even though they hoped Dragon Sect could be annihilated and the Dragon King could be slain, they were unwilling to take the risk. If they could not keep the Dragon King here today, an unparalleled expert would lead his inborn experts to assassinate the sacred sect disciples without stopping. None of the sacred sects or sacred clans could take such daunting power. Without exaggeration, Dragon Sect was currently the strongest in the underworld, apart from Donghua Sacred Sect. And the Dragon King would be the second strongest. The 2 old men beside Wuxia had sullen faces with eyes fixed on the departing figure. They were not confident in holding the Dragon King here. At his realm, it was hard to keep experts like him if he was determined to escape. Given Dragon Sect's strength, they make a good enemy of the 4 main devil sects, said Wuxia in a dull voice. He gazed around at all the ancestral sects and clans below the platform and heaved a deep sigh. His mood was extremely bad. Donghua Sacred Sect did not expect that they would make enemies with a formidable opponent. He threw a glance at Hai Jiao, who was severely injured, and took a deep breath. The alliance of the orthodox sects had to carry on. As for Dragon Sect, Donghua Sacred Sect was not that concerned, even though they were mighty. In fact, their sect leader was not here today. When their sect leader killed Emperor Qi from diabolism, it would be the time to annihilate Dragon Sect. Donghua Sacred Sect After Wang Xian walked out of Donghua Sacred Sect, he had a trace of coldness surfacing in his eyes. The moment he had entered Donghua Sacred Sect yesterday, Wang Xian did not have a good impression of Donghua Sacred Sect. They only allowed their own experts to hover in the air while the remaining clans and sects had to be on foot. In today's meeting, all their inborn experts were seated while the rest of the inborn experts from other sacred sects had to stand. The entire arrogant and prideful performance irked Wang Xian. Hence, he did not have any good impression of this ancestral sect. On top of that, they involved themselves in Hai Jiao's matter too. Since they want to have a game, I'll play with them. The establishment of Dragon Sect was to awe the underworld. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes and asked Mo Yuan in a dull voice, "Where are those Dragonians of the Abyss?" Dragon King, 7 of them are still operating the Abyss. In the face of the battles between diabolism and orthodox sects, there are many missions for killing diabolism. Now they are busy earning the spiritual stones. They even asked me for more manpower a few days ago. Mo Yuan replied with a broad smile. If that's the case, you'll take over the abyss and lead all the disciples of Dragon Sect. We'll assassinate all the inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect, said Wang Xian coldly. Since they're our enemy, there's no rest for them except death. Given Donghua Sacred Sect's strength and reputation, they would also wipe their enemies out completely. The underworld was such a place. Chapter 510, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 1. Chapter 510, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 1. Dragon King, we will be passing by the abyss on our way back. Should we head over with the Dragonians? On the way back, Wang Xian and the group called for a bus to send them back to Rivertown. When they were on the roads, Mo Yuan asked this. Oh, the base of the abyss? Wang Xian was baffled. The base of the abyss is in the city ahead. Yeah. Ling City, a relatively famous city in the underworld. Mo Yuan nodded his head as he answered Wang Xian. A famous city? Wang Xian was a little confused. Yeah. Ling City is just beside the Fateless Forest. There are lots of martial artists in the entire Ling City. Moreover, many wanted martial artists seek refuge in Ling City. There's another more commonly known name of Ling City, and that's Ghost City. In it, there's a huge area where everyone has left and no one is residing. Mo Yuan explained to Wang Xian. It's a chaotic place and the base of the abyss is built right there. Moreover, they have established a rather good information department. These information agents are all outlaws recruited within Ling City. Ling City? I have not heard of it. Since we are passing by, let's go and take a look. Wang Xian nodded his head and instructed Mo Yuan. Yes. Mo Yuan nodded his head and went to direct the driver towards Ling City. After entering Ling City, Wang Xian realized that it was more of a larger county than a city. The roads of the entire city were a little cramped. There were also more houses and it was a little more chaotic as compared to Rivertown. Dragon King, we are here. When the car arrived at the city center of Ling City, Mo Yuan turned around and informed Wang Xian. Located in the city center? Wang Xian alighted and observed the surroundings while he asked. This base wasn't built by Long Qi and the rest. They took over an assassination group and built it into the base of the abyss. Mo Yuan explained as he led Wang Xian towards a shop ahead. Ling Yu Bar. Wang Xian lifted his head and saw the name of the shop. He smiled and entered it. It was roughly 5 p.m. and the bar hadn't opened for business. Mo Yuan took out his phone and informed Long Qi and the rest. Dragon King. Soon, 7 Dragonians opened the door and greeted Wang Xian respectfully. Dragon King, please follow us. Once they were in the bar, Wang Xian noticed some of the employees were already working. These employees were all ordinary people of both genders. They looked curiously at Wang Xian and the group. Dragon King. We usually enter through Gate 2 and rarely enter through this gate. Long Qi said to Wang Xian in a solemn tone. Are there any other entrances? Wang Xian replied with a laugh. 5 of them. Long Qi answered and led them to an office. Soon after, Long Qi activated a switch and a tunnel leading underground appeared. This is just one of the entrances. There are 4 other entrances. As Long Qi spoke, he led them down the tunnel. After walking for approximately 1,000 meters, a huge underground space appeared before Wang Xian's eyes. This was the base of a first-class assassin group in the underworld in the past. It's extremely well hidden. Unless someone is part of the assassin group, it would be hard for them to enter. Long Qi explained to Wang Xian. This is a pretty huge place. It's almost half the size of the Dark Conjurer's base. Wang Xian looked around him in shock. Not many people were in the underground space. Other than the 7 Dragonians, the rest were all information agents. Information gathering was an important aspect of an assassin group. An assassin group without any information would basically be operating with both of their eyes closed. Even if they received a mission, it would take a huge amount of time to complete it. The entire Abyss base had 20-odd information agents processing information gathered from various places. For the near future, gather all information on Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian looked around and instructed them. The information on Donghua Sacred Sect might be a little troublesome. They are too strong and it would be hard for us to get. Long Qi frowned slightly and continued, however, we can buy information. Buy information. Yeah. Omniscient Group is an organization that specializes in selling intelligence. As long as you can afford it, any information can be bought. However, they charge exorbitant fees. Long Qi nodded his head as he explained. Omniscient Group. Wang Xian knew about the Omniscient Group. In the past they had published information on him. The Omniscient Group knew everything within heaven and earth. This was the strongest information organization in the underworld. When it came to the news on the underworld, there was nothing the Omniscient Group didn't know. One could tell how incredibly strong the Omniscient Group was. The Omniscient Group is also in this city. Long Qi suddenly interrupted. Huh? Their base is here too? Wang Xian was taken aback and shocked. We got to know this by accident. Shunling Information Technology Private Limited. That should be the nest of the Omniscient Group. Long Qi added. Is it? I'm 70% sure. There were a few times we overheard their informers exchanging information in our bar. They are really secretive. Long Qi continued. Furthermore, other than the Omniscient Group, the base of remains from Diabolism is also located within the Fateless Forest a short distance away. They have many disciples who are active in this place. Over the last few days, the number of martial artists in Ling City has been dropping rapidly. Omniscient Group and the remains are here. How interesting. Could it be that the Omniscient Group and remains are not aware of our existence here? Wang Xian was a little curious. The Omniscient Group was the best in gathering information. They shouldn't be unaware of things that were happening so close to them. Dragon King, there's a good chance they don't know about it. Our abyss has only been established for a short period. Moreover, the missions we have accepted are less than 10 thus far. Naturally, as we accept more missions, the Omniscient Group will likely notice us with their incredible network. Explain Long Qi. Wang Xian nodded his head. That was reasonable. Although the Omniscient Group was incredible, it was impossible for it to know everything in the underworld. Since the establishment of the Abyss, it was now ranked on the top of the Assassin Group chart in the underworld. However, they had only been established for just a few months. Moreover, the Abyss was only made up of 7 people and had accepted a small number of missions. Interesting. If we could gain control of the Omniscient Group, everything would be easier. Wang Xian hesitated. After walking around the base of the Abyss, he started pondering. When he walked out of the base of the Abyss, it was already past 6 p.m. Wang Xian had no intention to return today and thus headed in the direction Long Qi had told him about. Shunling Information Technology Private Limited was a high-tech company. With regard to this company, Wang Xian had heard of it. It was one of the top 500 companies in the world and was among the most elite tier in the aspect of computer information. Besides that, Shunling Information Technology Private Limited also had its own satellite. Chapter 511, I'm Annihilating the Demons 2. Chapter 511, I'm Annihilating the Demons 2. A high-tech corporation, one which possesses advanced satellite technology. Wang Xian exclaimed outside the entrance of Shunling Information Technology, while he sensed the staff within the entire company. They were all ordinary folks with not a single martial artist. And while Wang Xian gazed intently at the building, a middle-aged man watched on from the surveillance footage. He was standing in an office on the highest floor within the very same building. Around the middle-aged man were numerous sets of exquisite human skins that were hung and draping from above. Other than this, there were multiple garnet bones which shone in a crimson glow. The entire office looked extremely harrowing. From the surveillance footage, Wang Xian's silhouette appeared starkly clear. The Dragon King, Has he already come to learn of our omniscience base? If I guessed correctly, that bar earlier should be the Abyss. Indeed. The Dragon Sect disciples are assassins within the Abyss. The middle-aged man broke into a tiny grin. With a face of immense confidence, his eyes glistened as he eyed the footage. A mere Dragon King is nothing to worry about. It's the entire alliance of the orthodox sects which we're up against. Did you guys really assume that we, Diabolism, have lived in seclusion for the past half a century without actually doing anything? Did you guys really assume that we'd be wiped out so easily by your so-called orthodox sects? This time your so-called orthodox sects should prepare to look fear in the eye. The middle-aged man muttered under his breath, before continuing with a grimace. Then again, everything will depend on the fight between Emperor Qi and Ye Wushuang. It's best if they can perish together. The middle-aged looked on indifferently. He caressed his face as if to tidy up his appearance. After freshening himself up, he smiled once again. Striding like a successful man in society, he headed down with a briefcase in hand. All this while, his face beamed on with a warm and gentle smile. However, as the middle-aged man emerged from the room, Wuxia looked away while he remained standing beneath the Shenling building. Indeed, this is the omniscient group. But, compared to what I imagined, this place differs by a huge margin. Wuxia exclaimed as he turned around, while a sinister smile spread across his face. The middle-aged man assumed that he had scrutinized Wuxia in detail, as he watched him through the surveillance footage. Little did he know that Wuxia was looking at everything within the building using his piercing eyes, including the middle-aged man along with the surveillance footage. It did surprise Wuxia that this omniscient group seemed to be from diabolism, more specifically the remains. 5 decades of seclusion and waiting for an ambush. Indeed, things are more complicated than they seem. Wuxia wandered into deep thought before dismissing it with a shake of his head. He went away before stopping by a nearby restaurant for a simple meal. When it hit 8 at night, Wuxia arrived at the Lingyu bar by the abyss. The bar was packed with people. Little would anyone expect that an assassination group was housed just beneath this bar. Wuxia swept a glance across the entire bar, only to spot more than a dozen martial artists before he found a spot and sat down. He paid no attention to the blaring music and took out his mobile phone to send multiple messages to Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue. But the duo did not reply to him, which rendered him very helpless. Huh? Wuxia uttered in confusion. It was then when his nose twitched at the smell of a faint bloody stench. Wuxia narrowed his eyes before looking to the side. At one of the corners were 2 extremely good-looking young men, accompanied by 2 beautiful ladies who sat by their side. With all smiles, the 2 beauties sat, leaning on the young men. Wuxia looked at the eyes of the 2 beauties as they appeared stoic and lifeless. Their hands were resting atop the wine glasses, while a fresh stream of blood was filling up the interiors. With satisfied looks on their faces, the 2 young men groped the beauties indiscriminately while they drank the fresh blood from the glasses. Okay. This is the life. It's been 50 years since I stepped into the deep ends of the forest to lead a primitive life when I was 10. Now, I finally get to enjoy life in this world of pleasures. Society these days is really one of the pleasure and enjoyment. When I'm able to refine the second set of bone puppets, I'm going to turn this little beauty into a bone puppet, and have my fun with it every day. As for Faceless, those few old haggard bitches. They seem to be living quite the life right now too. They're here tsk. Look at that body, how mesmerizing. The conversation between the 2 young men could be heard loud and clear as it entered Wuxia's ears. Wuxia looked on with an icy stare. Through his piercing eyes, he could see 2 perverted elders in their 60s as they embraced the 2 beauties in their arms. Hi there, handsome guy. Just then, an alluring voice called out to him. Wuxia raised his head and saw a voluptuous woman looking at him with all smiles as she bent her body slightly. The woman even waved to the 2 young men seated in the corner. Wuxia took a look at the woman and thought of those exquisite human skins housed within the Shenling building. So this is diabolism? Although many from the orthodox sects are annoying, these from diabolism are harrowing. Wuxia thought to himself. This was not his first time seeing people from the remains. Previously, while on his way to the capital, Wuxia didn't have much of a feeling during his encounters with them. But now that he had seen things for himself, he was overcome with an urge to kill. As Wuxia raised his head to look at the shapely woman before him, what came into view instead was an old and haggard face that snarled in a grimace. What do you want, old haggard bitch? Wuxia asked coldly with a tinge of mockery as he eyed the old hag. The enchanting woman was taken aback as she reciprocated with an indifferent look. Who are you calling an old haggard bitch, handsome? Do I look old? The woman asked as she extended her hand and caressed Wuxia's shoulders. Is everyone from diabolism this unscrupulous and indiscriminate? Wuxia asked as he looked at the old hag before him before he swept a glance over at the 2 young men who remained in the corner. The woman froze upon hearing Wuxia's words, as the smile on her face faded away before it was replaced by a surging force of ominous aura. You know too much, the woman snapped with a growl, losing all sense of enchantment from earlier on. Die. Wuxia shot back in an unsympathetic tone. With a swing of his arm, a threatening force struck directly at the woman. With such a force, even killing an inborn expert would be a piece of cake. Ah. When Wuxia's arm landed on the woman, her face contorted as she shot him a look of trepidation. Boom. A bout of fresh blood was spat out from her mouth while her old, haggard and hideous body flew backward before crashing onto the area behind. "You're asking for doom." A snappy voice lingered across the bar as it concealed the music being played. "Huh? The golden cicada sheds its shell? To think it's managed to hold off the fatal blow." Wuxia exclaimed in mild surprise. He arched his brows before standing up gradually. "A martial artist? How dare you asking for doom?" At the corner, the two young men stood up immediately. Their facial expressions darkened at the sight of the faceless old hag when they saw that she had resorted to the golden cicada sheds its shell stance in order to stay alive. Get out, all of you." Just then, Mo Yuan and a few other Dragonians hollered at the rest of the ordinary folks who were present in the bar, at the sight of what happened. They had been keeping watch within the premises. The crowd responded. The holler, overwhelmed with a devilish aura, had raised fear in them. Even the tourists who had wanted to stay and watch the spectacle unfold began to race towards the exit in fright. Chapter 512, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 3. Chapter 512, I'm Annihilating the Devils, 3. All of a sudden, all the tourists in the bar ran out in a hurry, including those few martial artists. These martial artists were at most level 5 or 6. Some were even weaker. Mo Yuan's scream made them sense horrifying risks. Long Qi waved his arm and the employees instantly lost their consciousness and fell to the ground. I had not expected to meet such a powerful inborn expert in this place. The old hag who managed to stay alive by shedding her skin revealed her ugly true self. She wiped away the blood on her mouth and stared intensely at Wuxia with killing intent. The other two young men also walked over and stared coldly at Wuxia. "Who are you? Why are you offending our remains?" "I finally understand why there are so many sects in the underworld who wish to annihilate all of you. There are many scheming people within the orthodox sects, but you guys truly deserve death." Wuxia glanced harshly across the three of them. Today Wuxia finally witnessed the true side of diabolism. They were truly unscrupulous in killing the innocent by brutal means. The bloody cultivation arts had distorted their souls. People like them shouldn't exist in this world. You will die quickly if you stick your nose into things you shouldn't. The old hag let out a wretched cry and a bell appeared in her hands suddenly. Ding ding. A sound came from the bell. As for the other two young men, they held identical bells in their hands too. The magical sound made it out of the bar. Swish swish swish. At this moment, 3 figures appeared in the bar. 2 girls and a guy. The 2 girls were incomparably beautiful while the guy was exceptionally stunning. Their eyes were empty and they had a faint stench of blood lingering around them. There was a black patch in their palms that glowed in a creepy dull light. Their fingers were long and extremely sharp. "Brat, I'm going to skin you and dismantle your bones." The old hag's expression was contorted and she stared hideously at him. "You truly deserve death for spoiling our mood." The other 2 young men shook their bells gently and the 2 beautiful girls moved before them in rigid movements. "He's an inborn expert. I can't give all of his bones to you." The young man looked at the old hag and said plainly. "He damaged one of my skins. I'm getting his skin and you can have his bones. Kill him." The old hag shrieked and shook the bell in her hands. Ding ding, ding ding. The young man also shook his bell. 3 stiff figures instantly attacked Wuxia. Their razor-sharp claws gave off terrifying auras. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Seeing their faces, they were all in their 20s. Yet they had been killed by these devils. Wuxia waved his arm and intense flames shrouded on the bone puppets. Arg! Wretched screams came from them. The bone puppets had a little spirituality after they were refined. What? The 2 young men and the old hag were shocked to see the bone puppets they had refined turning to ashes rapidly. "Who are you? How can you be so powerful?" Fear gleamed in the eyes of the 3 of them. 3 inborn-level bone puppets were reduced to ashes directly. How can this be possible? Run! The 3 of them ran out without any hesitation. Wuxia was emotionless as he waved his arm. 3 balls of flames flew towards the trio and surrounded them completely. What? How can this be possible? Bring me to the base of the remains. Wuxia stared at them and demanded coldly. He wasn't paying attention to their screams. You. Who are you? The 3 of them looked fearfully at the flames around them and couldn't help but shiver. Me? Don't you know me? It doesn't matter. If you don't wish to die, bring me to the base of the remains, remarked Wang Xian plainly with a faint smile. You want to go into the base of our remains? A young man stared at Wang Xian and asked bitterly. That's right. Wang Xian chuckled. Bring me there and you guys might still have a chance to survive. Otherwise, I'll reduce all of you to ashes immediately. All right. Since you are courting death, I'll bring you there. The old hag growled at Wang Xian with a hideous expression. Take the lead. Wang Xian instructed them emotionlessly. Behind him, Mo Yuan immediately called to all the Dragonians. Those three are from the remains? They are from the remains. Those that charged in previously are the bone puppets they made, and those who can make such bone puppets are, without a doubt, inborn experts. They are now controlled by that overly young man. He's the Dragon King. I've seen him once before. That young man is the Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. Wang Xian used flames to control them as they walked out of the bar. When the martial artists that had chosen to stay witnessed this, their eyes widened and were filled with horror. Over the last few days, the disciples of the remains had been appearing in Ling City. Some martial artists had left in fear, but some had stayed because they were wanted by other governments or forces. Now that they saw the three inborn experts from the remains under the control of the Dragon King, they were astonished. What is the Dragon King going to do? A martial artist asked curiously. The two martial artists around him were mumbling to themselves in shock. I don't know. Dragon Sect has not joined the alliance of the orthodox sects and isn't willing to annihilate diabolism. Currently they are labeled as an evil sect by Donghua Sacred Sect. All the sects in the underworld have expressed their willingness to join the alliance of the orthodox sects in preparation for the annihilation of diabolism. Only the Dragon Sect hasn't joined. All the martial artists are looking down on the Dragon Sect with contempt. The three of them conversed. One of them took out the phone and entered the underworld website. All the experts of the underworld have joined the alliance of the orthodox sects to eradicate diabolism. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is exceptionally arrogant and isn't willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sections. Shocking. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect defeated the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and became the second strongest expert in today's underworld. The Dragon King from Dragon Sect is simply too arrogant. He severely injured the Lord of Sea Serpent Island and declared he won't rest until either the Dragon Sect or Donghua Sacred Sect has perished. He's not willing to join the alliance of the orthodox sects and acted just like a devil sect. Not only is the Dragon Sect unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, but they also are making Donghua Sacred Sect their enemy. A trash sect like this is no different from diabolism. I'm suggesting eradicating the Dragon Sect after eliminating diabolism. He's simply too arrogant. Annihilating diabolism was the trend of the entire underworld and what all martial artists hoped to see. Now that Dragon Sect had become the only sacred sect who was unwilling to join the alliance of the orthodox sects, all the martial artists in the underworld weren't happy with them. Besides that, he announced he wouldn't rest until either the Dragon Sect or Donghua Sacred Sect had perished at this critical juncture. Not only was he unwilling to help, but he also hindered the progress. This infuriated all the other martial artists. Although the sacred sects were wary of the strength of the Dragon Sect and didn't make a statement, their disciples could post critiques of them on the underworld website without reserve. All of a sudden, the Dragon Sect was seen as the equivalent of diabolism. TSK. When Wang Xian walked out of the bar and heard the comments around him, his face turned as cold as ice. I have no need to explain my actions to you guys. If I'm not happy with diabolism, I'll cut them down. If the orthodox sects offend me, I'll also kill. Public opinions from the underworld aren't going to change my mind. Chapter 513, Annihilating the Remains. Chapter 513, Annihilating the Remains. That place heads in the direction of the Fateless Forest. What's the Dragon King intending to do, heading over with a group of Dragon Sect disciples? The base of the remains is located within the Fateless Forest. Don't tell me he's intending to form an alliance with the remains? That's a tricky question. As of now, the Dragon Sect are enemies with the Donghua Sacred Sect. Who knows, the Dragon Sect might really just form an alliance with diabolism. Are you for real? As Ling City was really small, news of what happened in Ling Yu Bar soon spread across the entire city. Many appeared shocked and suspicious at the sight of the Dragon King, as he followed 3 members from the remains and headed for the Fateless Forest. Should the Dragon Sect really form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge disaster. Several martial artists shrieked with burdened expressions. They frowned at the sight of the group, whose silhouettes had disappeared into the darkness of the night. Currently, the prowess of the Dragon Sect had been acknowledged by the underworld as second amongst all forces. The prowess of the Dragon King was known to be second amongst all individuals within the underworld. Should such an expert from such powerful sacred sect form an alliance with diabolism, they would no doubt stand as a formidable opponent to the alliance of the orthodox sects. I must disseminate this message. A martial artist thought to himself with his mobile phone in hand. As he looked at the photographs taken on his phone, he proceeded immediately to post it for the underworld to see. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is in a suspected alliance with the Remains. 3 experts from the Remains have led the Dragon King into the Fateless Forest. We, the alliance of the orthodox sects, will have to exercise caution. Upon the dissemination of the news, the entire underworld was sent into a frenzy. Today the alliance of the orthodox sects had been officially formed, which the Dragon Sect had not joined. This had already caused the utter displeasure of many martial artists within the underworld. It only infuriated more, given that the Dragon King was also at extreme odds with the Donghua Sacred Sect. The Dragon Sect was thus slapped with terms like hindrance and evil sect. Yet, the entire underworld was sent into an uproar following the release of this news. An alliance between the Dragon Sect and the Remains? So the Dragon Sect has come together with diabolism. To think that the Dragon Sect's really combining forces with diabolism. What in the world? This damn Dragon Sect and its darn Dragon King. To think they're really forming an alliance with diabolism. Damn it, the power of the Dragon Sect is amongst the top within the underworld. Should they form an alliance with diabolism, it'll spell a huge damn disaster. It's probably due to the enmity forged between Dragon Sect and Donghua Sacred Sect today, hence the former's admission into diabolism in order to stand against the Donghua Sacred Sect. The Dragon Sect annihilated the Medical Saint Sect and Xiao Clan. Such a sacred sect is no different from diabolism, hence they should be wiped out the soonest possible. After the post was uploaded, it sent the entire underworld chiding and cursing away at the Dragon Sect. Many martial artists were infuriated, as they boasted blatantly of wiping out the Dragon Sect being the priority. Meanwhile, more than a dozen had gathered in a grand hall within the sacred grounds of the Donghua Sacred Sect, which was located amidst the central regions of the country. Those who had gathered looked on with deep frowns and awful expressions. Seated in the middle of those gathered was an elder, as he glistened with a metallic sheen. It was especially so with his arms, which shone like titanium. His hair was somewhat long as it hung loosely scattered behind his head, while he exuded a unique aura that boasted no less dominance. The Dragon Sect and Dragon King. With regards to this, you guys have not handled this properly. The elder snapped with a low growl which resembled the impact made as one struck with a heavy weapon. Yes, indeed, sect leader, this Dragon King's too obnoxious. He wants to slay the Lord of Sea Serpent Island while remaining at loggerheads with Donghua Sacred Sect. We can't do anything about it, Wuxia replied in awe and fear while standing by the side. Since we're already nemesis with each other, then let's just battle it out until either side perishes, the elder conceded with a flat tone as he raised his head. He too was aware that the other party would never let things slide since they had become enemies. Not unless they, Donghua Sacred Sect, decided to bow down and admit their faults. But to make the Donghua Sect bow their heads down was clearly not an easy feat, hence, the only way out was to battle it out until one party perished. Now that the Dragon Sect is going to form an alliance with diabolism, the entire alliance of the orthodox sects shall wait before removing those evils altogether when the day arrives. Wuxia proclaimed indifferently at a side. The elder nodded in agreement before standing up and flying off towards the deeper ends of the mountains. Wuxia watched as his sect leader took his leave before heaving a sigh of relief. His face was plastered with a grimace almost immediately thereafter. Darn this Dragon Sect and its Dragon King, he cursed. 5 minutes later, across the online forum of the underworld, the Donghua Sacred Sect made an announcement. The Dragon Sect and its Dragon King have pledged allegiance to diabolism and become demons. The alliance of the orthodox sects shall annihilate them in the times to come. With the announcement of the Donghua Sacred Sect, it meant that the Dragon Sect had since been recognized as a part of diabolism. Support Donghua Sacred Sect. Annihilate diabolism and Dragon Sect. Annihilate the Dragon Sect for their traitors of the underworld. And hopefully, slay the Dragon King the soonest possible. Countless martial artists commented below the announcement thread. Experts of various sacred sects looked on with burdened expressions at the sight of the situation. With the addition of the Dragon Sect onto the current task of eliminating diabolism, it seemed likely that many were going to die. The chat forum for the underworld continued to buzz as everyone was busy discussing a way about the admission of the Dragon King and his Dragon Sect into diabolism. In the meantime, Wuxia had already arrived at a ghastly burial ground along with 3 experts from the remains. 50 kilometers in front of the fateless forest, all trees had turned black. With their withering trunks, there was not a single leaf growing on their dry and bare branches. Caw-caw. A crow called out while resting atop a branch. With its jet-black body, it looked on with eyes that glistened in red. At the sight of the quartet, the crow turned its crimson eyes upon them. On the ground just up ahead, numerous broken bones were strewn all over, which consisted of both human and animal carcasses. The entire area up front appeared eerie and harrowing. So, up ahead lies the hideout of you remains? Wuxia asked as he squinted briefly, surveying the area ahead. Yes, that's right, it's just up ahead. The trio from the remains nodded instantaneously as they gazed at the remains base with a tinge of vigor in their eyes. If that's the case, then you all can perish now, Wuxia said indifferently as he looked at them. What? The trio uttered in bewilderment. Soon after, they noticed that the flames which had been surrounding them had begun to ascend. The horrendous blazing flames raged on, lighting up everything which stood in their way. No. Didn't you say? The trio from the remains uttered. In handling diabolism, it's only natural that I adopt the diabolical way. Wuxia sniggered without the least concern. With a swing of his arm, the blazing flames dived into the trio's mouths and muted all their screams. Bam bam bam. The trio struggled with all their might, while Wuxia retrieved an item from his pocket. It was a skull, a black skull. Although it was only the size of a fist, the skull brimmed in vitality. Nether Skull, level 12. The Nether Skull was a spiritual weapon which Wuxia had obtained from deity Lady of the Nether Flame denomination. Back then, this Nether Skull had released such formidable powers that even the fire demon had feared the trio. This made the Nether Skull worthy as a demonic weapon, as they increased their powers by absorbing will-o-wisp. What were will-o-wisps then? These were flames emitted from human bones after one died. Hence, one can imagine the number of lives it had cost to refine this Nether Skull. Even more so, as it ascended in levels, it would exhaust even larger amounts of will-o-wisp. And while will-o-wisps were not categorized under the heavenly flame, they appeared more terrifying otherwise. To subdue the demons using the demons. Wuxia smiled before thrusting the Nether Skull into the air above the 3 remains disciples. Chapter 514 Nether Skull. Chapter 514, Nether Skull. Ka. Creepy noises came from the corpses of the 3 members of the remains. The red flames on them had disappeared and were replaced by black will-o-wisps. The will-o-wisps burned creepily on their bodies, and in just a dozen or so seconds, their bodies had vanished completely. Wuxia revealed a faint smile and the Nether Skull returned to the size of a human head. He moved his arm and the Nether Skull hovered above his shoulder. From the location of the eyes, black will-o-wisps glowed intensely. The next moment, it turned to face the crows on the branches. Cadaveric Crow, Level 7. Level 7 Cadaveric Crows. There are at least a few thousands cadaveric crows around them. The remains are really strong. It's no surprise considering that they've been lying low for 50 years. Wuxia looked across the thousands and thousands of cadaveric crows in shock before continuing to walk ahead. Ga. Just as he was about to take another step forward, those cadaveric crows stared at him with their blood-red eyes. Using their razor-sharp beaks as weapons, they charged towards Wuxia. Bzz. The Nether Skull on Wuxia's shoulder appeared to be exceptionally excited. Will-o-wisps came from the bones of corpses. Cadaveric crows had far more will-o-wisps in them than ordinary people. Ka. With just a thought, the Nether Skull on his shoulder flew towards the flock of cadaveric crows. Its mouth enlarged and devoured 5 cadaveric crows in a go. Drips of impurities flowed down from the chin of the Nether Skull. No matter how many cadaveric crows there are, they are simply nutrients for the Nether Skull. Wuxia smiled faintly. Behind him, Mo Yuan and 27 Dragonians had also walked over. Ga. The deeper they went, the more cadaveric crows flew towards them. Their calls were sharp and shrouded towards Wuxia and the group in a huge flock. Wuxia waved his arm and a stream of fire dragon energy was injected into the nether skull. Ka ka ka. The head of the nether skull expanded explosively to over a meter in size. Will-o-wisps flickered in the giant eye sockets and the terrifying mouth crunched on the huge flock of cadaveric crows. Each cadaveric crow that entered the mouth of the nether skull was transformed into dense will-o-wisps. The cadaveric crows had become the nutrients for the nether skull instead. The more will-o-wisps are in the nether skull, the larger it can expand. That deity lady from Nether Flame killed several people before the battle to absorb their bones and create more will-o-wisps. Seeing the incomparably huge skull, Wuxia showed a faint smile. As it was a level 12 spiritual weapon, he wouldn't have to control it while it was devouring the cadaveric crows. Instinctively, it could attack on its own. Ga. After walking approximately 1,000 meters forward, a flock of at least 1,000 cadaveric crows appeared before them. In the middle there was a cadaveric crow that spanned 2 meters long. It opened up its wings and its black bones were exposed at the back. It was emitting a deathly aura and there was even a piece of flesh still dangling below its beak. It would seem like we are nearing the base of the remains. Wuxia looked ahead and saw a creepy and terrifying small village ahead of him. There was a small stream before the village and several stone huts. In the middle, there was a huge structure that resembled a platform for sacrificial rituals. At night, every stone hut and structure had 2 basins of flames at the door. Will-o-wisps burned creepily within the fire basins. In front of some stone huts, there were several human figures. They looked stiff and had no emotions on their faces. Intruders. Who dares to step into the remains territory? It doesn't matter. If he can make it here, he must be pretty strong and he will make a powerful bone puppet. A sharp voice resounded and figure after figure rushed to the spot from all directions. Rattle, rattle, rattle. At this moment, the sound of wings flapping could be heard from the sky. Wuxia lifted his head and looked into the sky. On a huge tree, a terrifying cadaveric crow with a human head was flying towards him. The human head had the looks of an exceptionally good-looking young man. However, his eyes were blood red and he had the body of a cadaveric crow. On the cadaveric crow, there was a young girl that looked like she was just 17 to 18 years old. She wore bright and revealing red clothes that exposed most parts of her body. A blue and red light flashed in Wuxia's eyes. He realized that the girl was, in fact, a hunchback old man. He was staring harshly at Wuxia and looked extremely creepy. Looking across the dozen-odd figures, Wuxia found that they were all handsome or beautiful guys and girls. There were at least 1 or even 2 bone puppets standing beside them. A pungent stench of blood was emitted from their bodies. There were 5 humans and together with their bone puppets, there were 13. Seeing Wuxia and the group, they raised their eyebrows in confusion and stood in a line. In the air, the hunchback old man stood on the cadaveric crow with a human head and was looking down at Wuxia and the group. Who are you? How dare you kill the cadaveric crows of our remains and barge into the lands of our remains? When the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow saw the huge skull above Wuxia, he questioned him solemnly. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. Wuxia looked across them and killing intent flashed across his eyes. Dragon King from Dragon Sect. The crowd was taken aback and turned solemn. As the guards of the base of the remains, they had gathered news on the happenings in the underworld while they were on duty. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect was now the second strongest unparalleled expert in the underworld. What? Are you here to collaborate with us? Where are the 3 disciples of our remains? The hunchback old man standing on the cadaveric crow had just glanced through the thread on the underworld website. He squinted his eyes and focused on the nether skull above Wuxia's head while asking him. Collaboration. Wuxia was taken aback but soon revealed a smirk. The disciples from the remains? Let me send you guys to meet them. Wuxia waved his arm and a stream of will-o-wisps shot out from the nether skull instantly towards the hunchback old man on the cadaveric crow. They are enemies. We are under attack. The hunchback old man shouted loudly upon seeing Wuxia attacking suddenly. Kill. Today I'm here to annihilate the remains. Wuxia ordered. Mo Yuan and the Dragonians behind Wuxia instantly sprang into action. When the hunchback old man saw the will-o-wisps crashing into him, he could feel the strength of it as his expression changed substantially. He moved his arms and the cadaveric crow with a human head below him shielded him immediately. Ga. The cadaveric crow cried out loud and fell onto the ground directly. What? The hunchback old man was furious and drew an ivory dagger instantly. Retreat. We are under attack from the dragon sect. We are under attack from the dragon king. Inform Lord Ossein. The hunchback old man shouted in his sharp voice which instantly reached the entire base of the remains. Run. When the other 5 experts from remains saw the strength Mo Yuan and the group released instantly, they were horrified and retreated immediately. Will you be able to escape? Today I, Wang Xian, shall enforce justice on behalf of heaven. Wang Xian waved his arm and dense fire dragon energy was injected into the nether skull. The nether skull exploded in size and reached over 2 meters. At the same time, it started devouring the members of the remains at an astonishing speed. Chapter 515, Lord Ossein. Chapter 515, Lord Ossein. Caw caw caw. Up in the sky, thousands of cadaveric crows descended on the area below in one clean sweep when they saw Wang Xian and the Dragonians lunging at the remains disciples. Their screeching caws pierced through the skies while they emitted bloodthirst as they swarmed like thousands of fowls out to kill. Wang Xian swung his arm and a gigantic skull appeared as it stared down at the crows. Akak. As if cackling in a grimace, the nether skull gave off a chuckle and shook lightly. Boom. Following the blast, a terrifying surge of nether flames soared past, concealing the area within more than 1,000-meter radius. Settling like dust, the surrounding trees fell to the ground. The cadaveric crows in the air, which measured 2 meters in length, had been bursting out in laughter earlier on. Yet they looked on and stared at the nether skull in trepidation. Kill! The nether skull commanded as if speaking in a human tone, opening its mouth before gnawing straight at the giant cadaveric crows. Caw caw caw. The broken voice of the nether skull continued to ring through the air as the giant cadaveric crow stood defenseless with no chance to retaliate. With every cadaveric crow it devoured, the nether flame on the nether skull glowed a little brighter. Running away, but can you? Wang Xian asked as he extended his arm, at the sight of the hunchback elder trying to escape. An inferno wall appeared instantly in front of the elder causing him to lose color in the face. Begone, die. Mo Yuan snarled from the back as his threatening dragon claws lashed at the head of the hunchbacked elder. Trying to kill me, huh? I'll slaughter you first. The hunchback elder grimaced before turning his body around. With his bone dagger in hand, he aimed the scarlet weapon straight at Mo Yuan's chest while paying no heed to Mo Yuan's dragon claws. Mo Yuan remained unfazed while numerous streaks of black dragon scales began to form on his chest area. Begone, die. Off you go to hell. The duo hollered at the same time. Thereafter, the maiden skin plastered on the hunchback elder began to split, revealing the hideous figure beneath. How dare you ruin my skin? Off to hell you go. The hunchback elder snapped with a grimace. With a grisly snarl, the hunchback elder took aim with the bone dagger in his hand and stabbed forcefully into Mo Yuan's chest. Tsk. The bone dagger plunged into Mo Yuan's body, to which he reacted with a small facial twitch. Yet, disbelief soon settled across the face of the hunchbacked elder. Creak creak. With a slight maneuver of his arm, Mo Yuan grabbed onto the arms of the elder, before tearing away at the latter's head using his dragon claws. How's this possible? How can your body be tougher than bone puppets? The hunchback elder roared at Mo Yuan while looking on in disbelief, following which a gigantic dragon claw clasped tightly onto his head. This blew the head of the elder right off, like an exploded watermelon. There's been an intruder. There's been an intruder. Ring ring ring. Ring ring ring. At that instant, shrieking cries could be heard from the remains village located just up ahead. This was immediately followed by a series of piercing rings of bells. Caw caw caw. Every ring of the bells resonated like a soul-stabilizing voice. Even the surrounding trees began to follow its lead, creaking gently as they swayed along. Up above in the skies, the cawing of the cadaveric crows could be heard. Under the pristine moonlight, countless cadaveric crows could be seen flying over. The lights shone brightly from the small village up ahead. One by one, numerous members from the remains began to make their way out. With bells in their hands, they looked coldly in the direction of Wang Xian. There are so many of them. Wang Xian exclaimed as he looked ahead with narrowed eyes. The entire village contained close to 10,000 villagers. This included the young and elderly, and each and every one looked on with a grim and ghastly expression. Many of the little children were each hugging onto a skull. Some were human skulls while others belonged to beasts. They're trespassers from the dragon sect. Kill them. An inborn expert of the remains shouted after being struck heavily by the Dragonians. In reaction to the harsh attack, he resorted to the stance of golden cicada sheds its shell, in order to make his escape, leaving behind a sheet of human skin. At the sight of this gory remains base, Wang Xian's body began to light up in flames. Those from the remains shouldn't be left to exist. With a change of stance, Wang Xian soared and ascended into the skies as he ejected a dragon ball from his mouth. Roar! With his dragon roar, the Inferno Divine Dragon was summoned from the Dragon Ball and was at Wang Xian's disposal before it dived into the skies and lashed the cadaveric crows. The level 11 Dragon Ball was already capable of unleashing powers equivalent to those of a Dan Realm expert. With one sweep of the dragon tail, the Inferno Divine Dragon wiped out hundreds of cadaveric crows using its flames and terrifying prowess. Ring ring ring. Kill that fellow in the sky. A screeching voice could be heard. It came from a chubby old lady who shouted while holding a human bone staff in her hand. At the same time, with a ring of bells on her other hand, she summoned 4 other members from the remains who proceeded to charge at Wang Xian. Amongst the quartet were 2 beasts, one of which was a giant bear and the other a goshawk, while the remaining 2 were elders. Together, these 4 inborn experts from the remains emerged with an overwhelming bloodthirst and savageness. Wang Xian looked across and saw close to 10,000 disciples of the remains standing in front of the village. A little more than 50 from the remains dashed ahead for Wang Xian and gang. They included more than a dozen who were charging straight for Wang Xian. Their bodies were 7 to 8 times stronger than their counterparts of equivalent grades. Their highly resistant bodies alone were enough to instill fear in an inborn expert, even if they should possess no other unique combat techniques. Similar to zombies, they feared neither pain nor death. No doubt the 4 main devil sects. Within the remains alone are more than 30 inborn experts. Along with the bone puppets that they produce, that'll peak at close to 80. Wang Xian extended his arms at the sight of the remains members who were charging in his direction. Crack crack crack. Suddenly the fire surrounding Wang Xian began to burst into wider flames, as little specks of fire appeared in void air. Dan Realm experts, hollered a chubby elderly lady who stood amidst the remains disciples. 1 Dan Realm expert and 27 inborn experts. She continued in grimace. The dragon sect, huh? Good. Today you all shall remain here, said the chubby granny. Thereafter, she threw the human bone staff in her hand over to the middle of the village, aiming straight into the building which resembled a ritual hall. May I call upon Lord Ossein to slay these tough opponents? The battle between good and evil has yet to begin. To think, someone has already barged into the grounds of ours? The grounds of the remains? A calm and leveled voice questioned. Lord Ossein, all disciples of the remains greeted immediately as they knelt in the direction of the ritual hall. Lord Ossein? Wang Xian asked with a raised brow. Following the greeting, the surrounding mid-air flames grew stronger before the specks coagulated into a collective flaming rope. With much ease, the flaming rope tied the respective inborn experts from the remains together. Bam! With a swing of his arm, Wang Xian dumped the remains over to the center of the village. Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. I know you. A bone tentacle shot out from within the ritual hall before it swung at the various remains. A freak who's neither human nor spirit. Wang Xian gasped with a squinted look as he stared ahead. With an indifferent expression, he could see a tentacle which stretched more than a dozen meters in length, and a skeleton which reached up to 10 meters. It resembled a snake's body and had a head attached to its rear. It was the head of an elder. Gradually, another snake-like tentacle extended itself slowly into the open. As with the previous, this skeletal tentacle also had a head at its tail. Yet this was not the end, as more and more skeletal tentacles began to emerge. Finally, a youth appeared. He had exceptional visuals, although he was without legs. On his lower body, 10 snake-like tentacles supported his weight, where each of the 10 measured more than a dozen meters long. Chapter 516, Annihilating Lord Ossein. Chapter 516, Annihilating Lord Ossein. Ga. Ling ling ling. When the terrifying Lord Ossein appeared, the cadaveric crows in the sky avoided the attacks of the Inferno Divine Dragon and the Nether Skull as they gathered above Lord Ossein rapidly. The bone puppets were summoned towards him and stood before the disciples of the remains. They were all staring at Wuxia with bloodlust. Dragon King of Dragon Sect, I don't remember our remains having any feud with your Dragon Sect. You should be going after Donghua Sacred Sect instead of coming to the base of our remains. The young man looked at Wuxia with a warming smile. His 10 other tentacles that were over 10 meters long supported him. There are many people who have no feud with the remains and yet you killed them all. I don't need to have a feud with you to kill you. The Inferno Divine Dragon came back to Wuxia and circled around him. The Nether Skull shrank back to the size of a human head and hovered on Wuxia's shoulder. How dare you barge in the land of our remains? You are indeed as described in the information we have gathered. Arrogant and conceited. The smile on the young man disappeared. He lifted his head slightly and continued, in that case you guys can forget about leaving. The body of a Dan Realm expert could very well be used to forge my 11th tailbone. He laughed out loud and waved his 10 other tailbones. On them the human heads were wretched. 10 pairs of eyes stared at Wuxia. They were cold and gave Wuxia goosebumps. I'll kill the Dragon King. As for the rest, I'm leaving them to you guys. The young man turned to Wuxia and revealed a faint smile. Hee. While he was smiling, 10 creepy voices came from the 10 human heads on his 10 tailbones. Your path to the remains is a one-way trip. Once you are here, you won't be leaving. The young man opened up his arms and shut his eyes slightly. A blood-red bell appeared in his hands. Oh, remains that have been in a slumber. It's time for you to rise. Ling-ling. Ling-ling. 2 clear rings sounded from the blood-red bell. Ka-ka-ka-ka. All of a sudden, a bone claw emerged from the ground. Following which, black skeletons crawled out from the ground. There were countless skeletons. It was as though the entire ground had awakened as thousands and thousands of skeletons crawled out. Ga. Cadaveric crows cried as they circled in the air. Their bodies had shielded the moonlight from the bright moon, causing the entire region to resemble a terrifying death region. This was once a major graveyard where over 300,000 elite soldiers died. Now that it's awakening, the future underworld will also be the remains underworld, the young man mumbled to himself. Suddenly he shouted coldly, Kill. Kill? The expressions on the faces of the group of disciples from the remains were contorted as the bell rang. They immediately charged towards Wuxia and the group. Inborn-level disciples of the remains had ivory daggers and bone swords in their hands as they charged and attacked the 27 Dragonians. 80 to 90 inborn experts killing 20-odd inborn experts should be an effortless task. Around them, dense skeletons also charged towards the Dragonians. These skeletons were as hard as rocks and had a strength that was not weaker than a level 6 or 7 martial artist. Controlling skeletons is a little like necromancers in the Western world. The Devil Dragon cultivation arts can also control skeletons and the Skeletal Dragon is even better at it. If Elder Fong and Xiao Yu were here, there wouldn't be sufficient skeletons for them to crush. Thousands and thousands of skeletons rose from the ground below Wuxia. Just killing these skeletons had fully occupied the Dragonians, let alone going against a huge group of inborn experts. The strength of the remains had completely exceeded their expectations. Devour them. Wuxia moved his arm and black will-o-wisps were emitted from the Nether Skull. They grew to 2 meters and attacked the skeletons below him and the cadaveric crows. Your opponent is me. It's been a long time since I became serious. Let's see how far you can push me. The young man looked at Wuxia as he flew into the sky directly. The 10 terrifying tailbones were swaying and the heads on them were staring creepily at him. The second strongest expert from the underworld? Take my first tailbone attack. The young man laughed as a tailbone swept towards Wuxia with tremendous force. What an arrogant person. Ruthlessness flashed in the eyes of Wuxia. Today I'll show you my true strength too. Growling grr. This time Wuxia didn't attempt to hide. Before the astonished eyes of Lord Ossein, Wuxia turned into a 5-colored divine dragon. Wuxia lifted his head and gave a loud roar that reverberated throughout the skies. This is? When Lord Ossein saw Wuxia's form, his eyes couldn't help but constrict. Divine dragon. Divine dragon. Could it be there are really divine dragons? Lord Ossein looked to Wuxia who was in the sky. A flash of surprise gleamed in his eyes, but such emotions were quickly taken over by frenzy. Regardless of whether you are a real divine dragon or other creatures, if your body can be used to forge the 11th tailbone, it will definitely be beautiful. I'm taking your body? Lord Ossein smiled and swung a tailbone towards Wuxia. The terrifying tailbones resembled bone chains made from metal. They were incomparably terrifying and had spikes all over them. The wind was split as the tailbone swept towards Wuxia's head. I'll show you my strength too. Ruthlessness gleamed in the eyes of Wuxia as he swung his dragon tail across. The dragon tail glowed in a golden light and the dragon scales stood up. The face on the approaching tailbone looked wretched. He opened his mouth, revealed his razor-sharp teeth, and droplets of water oozed out from his mouth. Rumble. The dragon tail and the tailbone clashed heavily together, creating a deafening boom. Arg! A pitiful cry came from the head on the tailbone. The moment the head clashed with the dragon tail, it exploded into pieces. Cracks filled the entire tailbone and it was almost as good as useless moving ahead. What? When Lord Ossein saw the cracks on the tailbone, he was shocked and infuriated. How dare you crush one of my tailbones? You deserve death. As he spoke, his entire body moved and the 9 other tailbones started sweeping towards Wuxia like the tentacles of an octopus. Every tailbone carried with it immense energy. As they clashed, sounds of explosions erupted and white fog was formed over the sky. Seeing Lord Ossein attacking towards him, Wuxia revealed a cold smirk. The strength of Lord Ossein was indeed terrifying. Every tailbone could have the strength of a Dan realm expert. Moreover, Lord Ossein relied solely on the strength of the physical body or simply brute strength. Nonetheless, one shouldn't belittle brute strength. When strength reached a certain level, it would still be a terrifying thing. He actually forced our Lord Ossein to release all his strength. This brat can die now. Below them, the disciples of the remains looked in admiration towards Lord Ossein after seeing their Lord Ossein waving his terrifying tailbones. Chapter 517 Remains Annihilated. Chapter 517 Remains Annihilated. Every tailbone of Lord Ossein has destructive power that can bring down the world. Each of them was made from the secret art of the remains, after consuming a large number of worldly treasures. According to the elders, Lord Ossein alone could fight against 5 Dan realm experts. Lord Ossein is considered the invincible existence among Dan realm experts. That person used an unknown method to turn into a divine dragon, but he's a far cry from our Lord Ossein. In the myths, divine dragons can rise to the sky, travel in the clouds, tumble the water. Every one of them is a few hundred meters in size. From what I see, this divine dragon is practicing bloodline cultivation, which is similar to those in Europe. The group of remains disciples watched with smiles on their faces. 27 Dragonians were already fully suppressed by 80 inborn experts from the remains, and they could passively defend themselves. If it were not for the Nether skull, there might have been casualties. It would not be long before they were killed. The Dragon Sect is simply providing materials. 27 inborn experts will make powerful bone puppets. After Lord Ossein makes his tail bone from this divine dragon, his strength will be enhanced greatly again. Then Emperor Qi might not be his match. With so many materials before our war, our strength will be greatly enhanced. A group of remains disciples revealed malevolent smiles as they watched the battle. Both the elderly and young were exhibiting bloodthirsty looks on their faces. Seeing the tail bone sweeping at him, Wuxia displayed a contemptuous look. When the tail bone was 100 meters away from him, Wuxia shook his body. He let out a soft snort. With a jerk, solid mustard shields appeared around Wuxia. His body was giving off a bright yellow glow. Every single dragon scale on him looked extremely solid. Boom boom. 9 tail bones slammed onto the mustard shield surrounding Wuxia, causing all the shields to vibrate. Yet there was no trace of cracks on them at all. Is this all you've got? Didn't you want me to try to see how many tail bones I could block? Wuxia craned up his dragon head with disdainful eyes, staring at Lord Ossein, who was in shock. No, this can't be it. Damn it, it should crack. Disbelief took over the expression on Lord Ossein's face with 5 tail bones straightened up. Poof. A bone-piercing sound was heard when sharp bones went through the top part of the tail bone. 5 tail bones spun with violent movement as they drilled into the earth shields. Bam bam bam. A hair-raising sound came from the sky, where 5 tail bones could only drill half a meter into the shield with their full forces. In the face of the few meters thick shields, it was to no avail. In particular, Lord Ossein's heart was slamming against his rib cage when he saw the taunting look on Wang Xian. It's my turn. With a contemptuous look in Wang Xian's eyes, thick thistles and thorns suddenly grew out from the shields. The strips of thistles and thorns went straight to the 5 tail bones and clung to them. What kind of attack is this? Upon seeing the thistles and thorns winding up at the tail bone, there was a drastic change in Lord Ossein's expression. From the flame just now to the earth shield and thistles and thorns, he did not understand how he managed to have so many attacking means. The so-called Lord Ossein is a piece of trash in my eyes. Let me try to see how many tail bones I can withstand. What irony. Wang Xian slowly reached out his dragon claws. From the earth shields, a strip of thistles and thorns came under his claws. Wang Xian grabbed it and said, "Let me see if you can survive for 10 seconds under my attack." As he spoke, he made a move and struck at Lord Ossein. With an appalling look, 5 of Lord Ossein's tail bones were trembling. To his horror, the power that he was proud of could not even shake off Wang Xian's shackles. A Dan realm expert couldn't be that strong. Lord Ossein appeared a little like a stone as he quickly exclaimed, "You're a budding realm expert. A budding realm." Coldness spread on Wang Xian's face as he raked his dragon claws at him. "No, I'm the leader of the remains. I'm immortal." There was a huge change in the expression of Lord Ossein, and the easiness and calmness from earlier on went missing. He malevolently controlled the remaining 5 tail bones and hurled them at Wang Xian. With a swing, the thistles and thorns in Wang Xian's hand were growing at a frenzied speed. Strips of thistles and thorns instantly grew to over 10 meters long. Dozens of thistles and thorns knocked themselves against 5 tail bones. Bam bam bam. Some of them broke away, but there were more that wrapped themselves onto the tail bones. "Do you still have other means of attack?" Wang Xian stared at Lord Ossein with sarcasm as he grabbed Lord Ossein's body with the dragon claws that were emitting golden radiance. No. Lord Ossein was appalled and despaired. The dragon claw of Wang Xian reached Lord Ossein and gripped his body. "An ant that I can crush any time." Wang Xian clenched his dragon claw, and a bone-cracking sound could be heard. The energy of the gold summit on the dragon claws were crushing everything in his body. "No." A desperate voice resonated through the place of the remains. "No, how can our Lord Ossein be killed? This is impossible. I don't believe it. This is not true." At this moment, the group of disciples of the remains who were waiting for their Lord Ossein to display his mightiness were staring with disbelieving eyes. What they had witnessed was the easy defeat of Lord Ossein. It was all too easy. The other party did not even exert much strength, and he could slay their invincible Lord Ossein. All their beliefs were toppled instantly. This was totally different from what they had anticipated. "Today I'll annihilate the remains." Wang Xian swept his cold gaze at all the remains disciples below him. He opened his mouth and spewed out a ball of daunting flames. Flames fell on them like magma washing down from the sky. "Run for your life." Frightening screams came from below as the remains disciples let out their desperate growls with terrified faces. They fled in panic, but the flames in the sky pouring down seemed to be endless. This was the true blue destructive power that could wipe out heaven and earth. Wang Xian stood in the sky, 100 meters above the ground, while all the remains disciples were shrouded by the flame wherever it passed. Those who were not even inborn yet perished in the fire. Wang Xian was merciless as he would not let them off because of how they worked and how cruel they were. "Oh no, Lord Ossein is dead. He's been killed. Flee for your life." The inborn experts from the remains who were besieging the Dragonians sensed the formidable strength from behind. All of them were horrified. With terror, they gave up on the siege of the Dragonians and fled desperately away. "Do you think you can escape?" However, it was impossible for inborn experts to get away from a budding realm expert, not to mention Wang Xian, who was close to the immortal realm. Roar. After a bellow, a ball of flames landed on the last inborn expert of the remains who was enveloped by the daunting flame even before he could display his golden cicada sheds its shell. After that, the remains were annihilated. No one had expected the remains, one of the 4 main devil sects, to be annihilated within a night. Chapter 518, The Treasures of Remains. Chapter 518, The Treasures of Remains. Crack crack crack. The bright moon illuminated the earth and explosions erupted from various corners of the creepy region. From time to time, one could even hear the sharp cries of the cadaveric crows. A huge 2-meter skull was constantly devouring skeletons and cadaveric crows. As a stream of will-o-wisps swept across, huge flocks of cadaveric crows and skeletons fell to the ground. The entire region was exceptionally terrifying. Wuxia waved his arm and a stream of fire dragon energy shrouded over. Several skeletons fell and the will-o-wisps from them entered into the nether skull. Wuxia could feel the nether skull getting exhilarated as it absorbed the surrounding will-o-wisps with greed. Dragon King, the remains are really strong. The bone puppets they have created could also match us in defense and strength. Mo Yuan led the Dragonians to clean up the battlefield before returning to Wuxia's side and commenting solemnly. The disciples of the remains together with the bone puppets they had forged gave a total of roughly 70 to 80 inborn experts. On top of that, Lord Ossein could even match 4 to 5 Dan Realm experts. Overall, they were incredibly tough. At the very least, if Donghua Sacred Sect didn't have Nie Wushuang, the remains might have chosen to target Donghua Sacred Sect by now and could even have defeated them. It would take roughly 3 ordinary sacred sects to stand up against it. There were 4 main devil sects within Diabolism and Remains was just one of them. The strongest of them all was the Devil Corpse Palace. Emperor Qi was the palace master of Devil Corpse Palace and the strongest existence within Diabolism. Other than the 4 main devil sects, there were also other devil sections. Spirit's Land, Cursed Venom and Crimson Bug were examples of other devil sects below the 4 main devil sections. There were also Dan Realm experts within the 4 main devil sections. It was just that they weren't as insane and powerful as Lord Ossein of the Remains. On the surface, Diabolism and the Orthodox sects had equivalent strength. As to whether the alliance of Orthodox sects could eliminate Diabolism, the crux was still the battle between Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi. These bone-made weapons have been refined and can't undergo further processing. What a shame. Wuxia looked across the ivory daggers, bone swords and other weapons used by the Remains. They were all level 9 weapons. These bone-made weapons were clearly forged through unique refining methods by the Remains. Their limits had been reached and could no longer be improved. Wuxia appeared beside the body of Lord Ossein, glanced at his tailbones and shook his head slightly. Go search for the treasures within the Remains and bring all of them here. Wuxia instructed Mo Yuan and the Dragonians while he remained to control the nether skull absorbing the will-o-wisps. The nether skull was a rather mystical spiritual weapon. Now that Wuxia had mastered the arts of forging spiritual equipment, he still couldn't decipher how it was created. Vaguely he felt this involved spirit arrays. From the staff of Ajaya, Wuxia could also feel the presence of spirit arrays. The nether skull constantly absorbed the will-o-wisps from the bones around him. The will-o-wisps from the bodies of the experts from the Remains were being sucked dry. In the end, the nether skull came before the corpse of Lord Ossein. Its teeth were chattering and it seemed to be exceptionally excited. Dense and terrifying vibes came from the nether skull as it landed on the tailbones of Lord Ossein. The tailbones were cracking and streams of dense will-o-wisps entered into the nether skull. Bzz bzz. The nether skull started to expand to 2 meters once again. However, 2 meters wasn't its limit as it continued to grow at an astonishing pace. In the hands of the deity lady from Nether Flame, the limit of the nether skull was 3 meters. At this point, the nether skull had also grown to 3 meters. When it reached 3 meters, the nether skull had only absorbed the 3rd tailbone. There were another 7 to go. Streams of dense will-o-wisps gushed into the nether skull. As the last tailbone was turned to ashes, the entire nether skull had grown to over 5 meters. The 5-meter skull hovered in the air. At its eyes, eerie will-o-wisps were burning and one could feel a creepy and evil aura coming from it. Wuxia waved his arm and the nether skull returned to his hands, reverting to the size of a fist in the process. The effects of the nether skull were a little like the Dragon Ball. They could both be released to attack. However, the Dragon Ball was much easier to control as compared to the nether skull. If the Dragon Ball reached level 12, he would have little use for the nether skull. Even so, it was still a little weak. Dragon King, we have located where the Remains kept their treasures. At this moment, Wuxia heard Mo Yuan. Wuxia moved and instantly arrived in the middle of the platform used for sacrificial rituals. Within the structure, will-o-wisps were burning. There was also a huge 5-meter skull without any flesh and blood that was being enshrined. The treasure cove was located at the lowest level. Wang Xian jumped in and saw Mo Yuan and the Dragonians looking at the items before them. Dragon King, this should be the most important treasure cove of the remains. The area was dark with small will-o-wisps hovering, illuminating the area. The underground area wasn't big and spanned only 1,000 square meters or so. There were several racks with skeletons hung on them. These skeletons were also glowing with a dull shade. Wang Xian looked across and realized these were the bones of experts. They were useless to him. This is? Wang Xian walked to the left and saw pieces of black metal being placed on the rack neatly. Devil Shadow Steel, level 10. Devil Metal Steel? Inborn level materials. Excitement beamed in Wang Xian's eyes. There were over 100 pieces of devil steel and each was the size of a human head. Devil Attribute Inborn level materials. I can use them to forge equipment. Wang Xian continued moving deeper and saw masks made of human skin hung on the walls. These masks could totally change one's appearance. In the middle there was a blood-red mask emitting a devilish vibe. Devil Shadow Mask, level 10. Devil Shadow Mask. Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. He removed it and put it over his face. Instantly, energy welled up and a shadow of him appeared beside him. The shadow looked a little illusory. If he could catch his opponent by surprise, the effects would be tremendous. What an interesting mask. Devil Shadow Mask? Is this made from the devil metal steel? Wang Xian pondered as he continued looking around. Tenacious Devil Stone, level 10. More inborn level materials. Looking ahead, a pile of stones that were glowing dimly appeared before his sight. There were over 50 pieces and Wang Xian was elated. Walking to the middle, Wang Xian found several thick books. On them, the word remains was written in an ancient-looking font. This is the art of creating bone puppets. Wang Xian stared fervently at a book before flipping it open. Bones have spirituality. Refining them with special materials can forge powerful and terrifying bone puppets. The method of forging bone puppets was recorded within. Besides that, the extraction technique of the human mask was also recorded, including the ability to shed one's skin to escape. Wang Xian took a look and shook his head. The crafting of bone puppets was too brutal. One had to use the bones of living creatures that had just passed away or the bones of a living human. Chapter 519, The World is Shocked, 1. Chapter 519, The World is Shocked, 1. Wang Xian burned all their books away since the remains art of cultivation was nothing useful. He looked around, noticing only bones occupying most of the areas. Other than that, it was the raw material for refining the bone puppets. The only relatively high-value stuff was probably a devil spiritual bead, a level 11 devil spiritual bead. However, the devil spiritual bead was useless to him, except for making weapons or giving it to a Mo Qinglong. Take all the material with us and go. Wang Xian ordered the Dragonians. Yes, Dragon King. Mo Yuan beckoned to some Dragonians, wrapping all the inborn materials up. Dragon King, we found some vital information. Just as they came to the ground, Wang Xian saw Long Qi, and the rest walked out from a room by the side with thrilled faces. What is it? Seeing their excited expressions, Wang Xian asked this with his curiosity piqued. It's about Omniscient Group. Unexpectedly, Omniscient Group was actually established by the remains. They infiltrated the underworld with painted skins and human masks with 50 years of development. Shunling Information Technology was their base camp. I even have a piece of information regarding the top management of Omniscient Group. The top management was all diehard subordinates groomed by the remains. They are not cultivators but completely ordinary people. If we could control the top management, we could control the entire Omniscient Group. Long Qi was elated as he continued to Wang Xian. All the people in the underworld would not have expected that Omniscient Group is controlled by a group of ordinary people. Hence, things turned out to be this way. Besides, they have access to a team of powerful computer masters who can do surveillance on any places. In addition, there are satellites. As long as the signal is clear, we can see anywhere we want. Is that so? A trace of surprise flashed in Wang Xian's eyes. So, if we control the top management, we can control Omniscient Group. Yes, the internal department of Omniscient Group has very tight control. Not even the middle-level staff know the location of the base of Omniscient Group. They will deliver the message through internal channels, reporting up level by level. As such, once we have access to higher management, it will be as good as controlling the entire omniscient group. Long Qi nodded his head with force. Mo Yuan, you'll try to gain control of omniscient group with Long Qi and the rest. I hope you guys succeed. Wang Xian gave commands to Mo Yuan immediately. Yes, Dragon King. As long as we can find the people, we'll be able to seize control. Sure, I'll wait for your good news. Wang Xian smiled as he walked outside. When he stepped out of the Remains land, he spun around and swept a look at the creepy and daunting forest. Wang Xian made a swift move and hovered to the sky. With a dragon ball in his mouth, Wang Xian opened his mouth and spat below. Columns of flames fell, encompassing an area spanning a dozen meters in an instant. Wang Xian again spewed flames in the other direction. Within a minute, the entire Remains land was shrouded in intense heat as the flames rose and spread out to the surroundings. With swift action, Wang Xian came to the border of the land and set up a barrier. That meant that the flame would automatically extinguish itself once the entire Remains land was totally burned down to ashes. The entire region spanned over a radius of about 20 kilometers. The black woods in this forest carried traces of toxins, so he wanted to get rid of this entire place. When the fire rose, Wang Xian headed towards Ling City with a beaming face. The blazing fire behind him was burning even more fiercely than before as it lit up the entire sky. Ling City was a city that never slept. The nightlife over there could be comparable to those first-tier cities. As a city with a high crime rate, many people were wandering outside at night. When Wang Xian arrived at Ling City half an hour later, those wandering night owls suddenly realized the sky was much brighter. What's going on? Why is the sky lit up? A few young people outside looked up curiously as they noticed the sky was brighter than before. That is the direction of the Fateless Forest. It's the Fateless Forest. There is a fire over there now. Why is that forest on fire? The Fateless Forest is quite damp. What a blazing flame. The brightness is taking over the sky. I guess the range of land on fire should spread over 10 kilometers. Everyone was shocked, including one of the martial artists who was looking towards the direction of the Fateless Forest with questions on his face. What's going on? Why is there such a huge fire? The base camp of the Remains is in the Fateless Forest, but why would there be fire? Some martial artists cast their gazes over with suspicious looks. The Fateless Forest covered hundreds of kilometers. Still, the region that was on fire was at least 10 to 20 kilometers. Such a large surface area of fire had erupted, and people of the Remains would not have missed out. If they found out, why would they let the fire burn by itself? Could something have happened to the Remains over there? Some of the martial artists pondered. Master, the Fateless Forest is on huge fire. It's odd. Back on a rooftop of one of the five-star hotels in Ling City, dozens of middle-aged and old men were standing around as they gazed in the direction of the Fateless Forest with quizzical expressions. It is indeed strange. Someone from the underworld mentioned that the Dragon King, along with some of the disciples of Dragon Sect, entered the Fateless Forest. Now that the forest is on fire, could this have to do with the Dragon King and the rest? The old man in the center revealed a pondering look. The Spiritual Wind Sect, a first-class force, was just passing by this area after the alliance of the Orthodox sects had ended during the day. Since it was too late to leave, they decided to stay put at Ling City for a night. There is absolutely no reason for such a great fire to break out in the Fateless Forest. A middle-aged man frowned. Could it be the Dragon Sect and the Remains developed some conflicts? Or it's more than meets the eye? An old man murmured. Why don't we go and check it out? Given our speed, not even the inborn experts of the Remains could catch up to us, said an old man from Spiritual Wind Sect suddenly. Spiritual Wind Sect's cultivation was wind attributed. Hence their forte was in their speed. Compared with the people in the underworld, the speed of the experts in the ancestral sects of Spiritual Wind Sect could be ranked within the top 3. Great, let's go and check it out. Several elders hesitated before they nodded. You guys wait over here. We will be right back. 4 inborn experts of Spiritual Wind Sect swept up swift movements just like a blast of wind as they flitted towards the Fateless Forest. Their speed surpassed all their peer inborn experts. To an inborn expert, one could take less than 20 minutes to travel dozens of kilometers. But the 4 inborn experts of Spiritual Wind Sect were much faster. In less than 10 minutes, the quartet came to the edge of the fire. They flapped their phoenix wings at their backs as they flew ahead. The soil over here is different from other places. Even the trees too. This should be the territory of remains. They noticed that the region where the fire was burning was different from its surroundings. After some exchanges of gazes, there were traces of horror hidden in their eyes. With some hesitation, they continued to hover towards the center. That is? Gosh. This was supposed to be the site of the remains. Why has it turned to some ruins now? Could it be? An unbelievable idea began to form in their heads as they stared blankly below at the ground covered with daunting bones. Stone houses were radiating the fiery red glow of flames, and charred bodies were lying on the floor. Could it be that the remains have been annihilated? Chapter 520, The World is Shocked. Chapter 520, The World is Shocked. Could it be that the remains have been annihilated? An unbelievable thought surfaced in the minds of the 4 experts from the Spiritual Wind Sect. They stood at the base of the remains that had been raised while staring blankly at the surroundings. When they looked across, they couldn't help but gasp. Where are the remains? That's one of the 4 strongest devil sects. It's even stronger than an ordinary sacred sect, and yet it has now been razed to the ground. Who did this? Who is capable of doing this? An old man looked around in shock. Looking at the corpses on the ground, he hesitated for a moment before jumping into the middle of the flames. Ka. As he landed on the bones, sounds of bones cracking gave him chills. He walked towards the structure in the middle and saw the sacrificial ritual platform with the word remains engraved prominently on it. Around them, there were no longer any signs of life. All the people had died. The old man flew into the sky and suddenly noticed a huge body below him. That was the body of a young man with 10 terrifying tailbones. At this moment, the tailbones scattered into ashes when a gentle breeze blew past. Those 10 tailbones. That must be the corpse of the Lord of the Remains. Astonishment was written all over the old man's face as he mumbled with a shaky voice. The remains being annihilated is a piece of good news for all Orthodox sections. The only question would be who would have done so. The other old man by the side sank into deep thought. He had a conjecture in mind, but he wasn't certain. In the underworld, who would be capable of this? An old man looked ahead before exchanging glances with the others. Only the Dragon King and his subordinates have entered this place today. Moreover, only the Dragon King is capable of annihilating the remains in the underworld at this moment. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect? Why did he want to annihilate the remains? Now that he has a deep feud with Donghua Sacred Sect, would he dare to offend the devil sects too? An old man shook his head in disbelief. Becoming the enemy of Donghua Sacred Sect and diabolism. Could it be that the Dragon King is trying to make the whole world his enemy? Making the whole world his enemy? He is really making everyone his enemy. The Dragon King's actions aren't something we can predict. He has offended the leader of the Orthodox sects and annihilated the remains from diabolism in the same day. Arrogance. Really arrogant. Let's go. If the people of the underworld are to learn about this, they probably will be shocked and stirred. Donghua Sacred Sect is going to be embarrassed in this matter. The few of them conversed and took a further glance at the base of the remains that was still shrouded in flames. With shocked and complicated feelings, they headed back towards Ling City. Along the way they saw 2 inborn experts dashing past them. They didn't converse and simply went on their own way. Night. The entire world had quietened down. Activity on the forum of the Underworld website had also died down deep into the night. The critiques of the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect had also paused for the moment. However, a thread suddenly appeared deep into the night. The remains have been annihilated. This thread came with pictures of the huge fire in the base of the remains and the corpses within the area. When this piece of news was announced, it didn't cause a huge ruckus at night. Nonetheless, there were still 1,000 comments. On the second morning, Wang Xian headed to the floating island near Rivertown after waking up. Looking at the devil metal steel and tenacious devil stone on the ground, he hesitated for a moment before starting to craft weapons. I hope I can succeed. After I craft this inborn spiritual equipment, the Dragonians will be invincible among inborn experts with them. Wang Xian's lips curved into a smile as anticipation beamed in his eyes. At this moment, what Wang Xian didn't know was that his actions yesterday had shocked the world. Late at night, when the thread of the remains being annihilated was posted, It only drew the attention of 1,000+ people. Some of them didn't believe it while others had doubts in mind. Some sects and experts nearing the Ling city sent their men over out of curiosity. When they entered the nest of the remains and saw the situation, they couldn't help but be astonished. Early in the morning, the news of the remains being annihilated had truly kicked up a storm. The remains, one of the 4 strongest devil sects, has been annihilated. Flames have raised through their base and all the experts of the remains are dead. This has been verified. Many people might not have believed the news last night about the remains being annihilated. We are located near the base of the remains. After heading there, we are sure to say that the remains have indeed been annihilated. Shocking. The base of the remains was reduced to ruins in a single night. Who could have annihilated the remains? The news of the remains being annihilated soon spread like wildfire. The remains was one of the 4 strongest devil sections. It was terrifying and strong. Yet they had been annihilated. Many people in the underworld couldn't help but cheer on the news of them being annihilated. The evil and brutal acts of the remains had long infuriated many sects and families in the underworld. While they were celebrating the annihilation of the remains, the question of who had annihilated them was also thrown out. Who could have annihilated one of the 4 strongest devil sects? Who? When questions of this nature were posted, many people recalled the thread about the Dragon King of Dragon Sect last night. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect led a group of disciples with the disciple of the remains into the fateless forest. The thread starter saw the Dragon King headed towards the base of the remains with the disciples of the remains. Soon news of the remains being annihilated came. At the thought of this, their jaws dropped and disbelief filled their faces. Could it be that the Dragon King was the one who annihilated the remains? What a terrifying thought. In the current underworld, Donghua Sacred Sect could have annihilated the remains. Dragon Sect is also capable of doing so. Considering that the alliance of the orthodox sects was formed yesterday, Donghua Sacred Sect wouldn't have been the one who was responsible. On the other hand, there was news of the Dragon King leading his disciples into the base of the remains. The conclusion is clear. It's almost 100% certain that the Dragon King was the one who annihilated the remains. Dragon King is simply too incredible. Aren't there people accusing the Dragon Sect of joining diabolism? Damn. What a preposterous claim. In my view, considering the Dragon King's personality, he would never join diabolism. I believe it was Donghua Sacred Sect who accused Dragon Sect of joining diabolism and that they will be annihilating the Dragon Sect. I, the Dragon King, don't have to explain my actions to you. I can choose to become an enemy to the leader of the alliance of the orthodox sects, Donghua Sacred Sect. At the same time, I can annihilate the remains from diabolism as I wish. Damn. The Dragon King is too darn domineering. A day ago, everyone was still criticizing the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. What about today? Alright, I admit I was one of them. Here I would like to say something. Dragon Sect is mighty. The Dragon King is domineering. Through this, the Dragon King has undoubtedly given a slap to all those who criticized him yesterday. At the same time, they gave a slap to Donghua Sacred Sect. This speed of slapping those who criticized them is too darned quick. Chapter 521, The World is Shocked, 3. Chapter 521, The World is Shocked, 3. The world is shocked. So is the underworld. When the news of the remains getting annihilated was passed around in the underworld, threads were being added into the forums at a frantic speed. Many people found it unbelievable, yet were elated by the fact that the remains were annihilated by the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. On the verge of the war breaking out between the devil and orthodox sects, having annihilated one of the 4 devil sects was as good as weakening diabolism by 1/5 of their strength. Yesterday, the rumor that Dragon Sect was joining diabolism had fallen on its own, putting Donghua Sacred Sect in an awkward position instantly. The Donghua Sacred Sect is really embarrassed now. From their statement released yesterday, they were too impatient to deal with Dragon Sect. Donghua Sacred Sect and the rest of the martial artists simply accused Dragon Sect of joining diabolism, so they just annihilated the remains. Which sacred sects in the underworld are capable of doing so? Even Donghua Sacred Sect would need to make tremendous efforts. I don't understand the actions of the Dragon King from Dragon Sect. He just rejected to join the alliance of the orthodox sects yesterday afternoon and even made Donghua Sacred Sect their sworn enemy. Yet, Dragon Sect annihilated the remains that night. We're just average men who can't see the link. Let me clarify. The Dragon King has made Donghua Sacred Sect a sworn enemy because of Hai Jiao. Hai Jiao wanted to slay the Dragon King. Still, he was defeated by the Dragon King, and Donghua Sacred Sect wanted to protect Hai Jiao. Hence they became enemies. But why isn't Dragon Sect joining the alliance of the orthodox sects? Why does no one ask this question? And why does Donghua Sacred Sect want to protect Hai Jiao when he was trying to kill the Dragon King and was eventually defeated? Obviously, Donghua Sacred Sect infuriated Dragon Sect, resulting in Dragon Sect turning their back on them. In any case, it was good that Dragon Sect did not join Diabolism. Otherwise, given the power of Dragon Sect and the strength of the Dragon King, we don't know how much price the underworld must pay just to annihilate Diabolism. In the internet world, netizens overturn their points of view at the speed of lightning. That is how the internet works. Yesterday, many of the martial artists were still chiding the Dragon Sect. Still, more martial artists surfaced to support Dragon Sect and the Dragon King today. However, Wuxia would not have the slightest interest in this even if he knew about it. At this time, a group of people arrived on the floating island. Wuxia, we're here to confirm something with you. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan led some of their disciples to the floating island and spoke to Wuxia as soon as they saw him. Oh, what's the matter? Have you brought all the inborn level materials? Let me see how many inborn spiritual weapons I can exchange with you guys. Wuxia said to them with a broad smile. Did you really annihilate the remains of Diabolism? Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan stared at him, setting the inborn spiritual weapons aside first. Yes, I met the people from the remains yesterday and I don't like their ways of doing things. Since I wasn't far from their base camp, I just annihilated them, said Wuxia without any emotion. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan exchanged glances with their lips twitching. Annihilated the remains as you wished. It is the remains you are talking about. Since the remains could effortlessly annihilate Sui clan and Xiao clan, it seemed like their gaps with Dragon Sect was getting bigger. Fine, you're a demon. Sui Huang took a deep breath and continued, all the inborn level materials that we could get are here. Take a look and see how many weapons can be exchanged. Sure. Wuxia nodded. The people from Sui clan and Xiao clan carried all the materials forward. Looking at the chests of inborn level materials, radiance was beaming from Wuxia's eyes as he showed a hint of excitement. Take a look. Xiao Quanshan told Wuxia as he opened the chests. Wind Feather Stone, level 10. Earthy Clay, level 10. Thunder Rock, level 10. Golden Metal Rock, level 10. Ryukinium, level 10. Vibranium, level 11. Ghostwood, level 11. All the inborn level materials brought by Sui clan and Xiao clan totaled 7 types of different metals. Out of which 2 were level 11 materials while the rest were level 10. Metal attributed materials made up most of them. This is Wind Feather Stone, which is extremely durable, and you almost cannot feel its weight. Earthy Clay has a strong stickiness, and it's hard to get rid of once something is stuck on it. Thunder Rock was a rock found on Thunder Mountain. It was formed through millions of lightning strikes, and therefore it contains an immense amount of electricity. It could easily electrocute an elephant. Xiao Quanshan and Sui Huang began to introduce the metals to Wuxia, in which the number of wind feather stones was the highest, with 60 pieces of it, while vibranium and the ghostwood had the least numbers. Overall, they had quite an amount of inborn level materials. With those, he could craft at least 20 to 30 weapons under the assumption of a 100% success rate. The success rate of smithing weapons and alchemy were on par. But compared to alchemy, some of the materials could be recycled when a weapon failed in the crafting process. With these materials, you guys can forget about Dan Realm weapons. Since you have too little vibranium and ghostwood, I'll give each of you 10 spiritual weapons. What do you think? Asked Wuxia with a beaming face. Sure. Radiance flashed in the duo's eyes as they nodded in agreement immediately. Initially, the thought of exchanging these materials for 5 weapons inborn spiritual weapons would have made a great deal to them. Since they could exchange 10 now, it had greatly exceeded their expectations. Great, come over and pick your weapons. Wuxia nodded and brought them to the weapon pavilion. Back on the floating island, Wuxia had ordered his men to construct a separate pavilion for weapons and elixir pills to distinguish the treasures. All the other forces in the underworld would usually have one treasure vault, but Wuxia was different. When they entered the weapon pavilion, one could sense a surge of sharpness and heat as a myriad of weapons were hanging on the surrounding walls. The weapons were exuding a faint fire glow as they possessed a unique spirit. This. As soon as Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan entered, their eyes flew open with unbelievable looks. You lad. How did you manage to get so many inborn spiritual weapons? Gosh, why are there so many over here? The two of them acted like they were some bumpkins, gazing around in shock. I can feel daunting power from that staff over there. That night sword is above the inborn level. It's definitely more than that. Goodness gracious. The two of them looked around with surprise as they almost drooled. Wang Xian looked at them and chuckled. Okay, each of you is allowed to take 10 weapons. Don't say I'm mean. It's quite a lot. One was the master of his girlfriend, while the other one was the Laozu of his disciple. On top of that, Wang Xian owed them favors. He would not feel bad for giving them 10 weapons each. Wang Xian, you see, since you have so many spiritual weapons over here, can you lend me a handy weapon too? Asked Sui Huang to Wang Xian with thick skin. Xiao Quanshan at the side twitched his lips upon seeing the way he acted. But he also looked at Wang Xian with a flattering look. I heard that Xu Qing was in a bad mood these last few days. I was getting ready to teach her alchemy over the next 2 days. The timing is just right. Sui Huang took out his trump card. Chapter 522 Devil Shadow Masks and Devil Wings. Chapter 522 Devil Shadow Masks and Devil Wings. Falling for Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan's shameless pleas, Wang Xian threw 2 weapons casually towards them. Both of them grinned widely as though they were perverts who had their eyes fixed on a stunning beauty. Holding the weapons in their hands, they constantly wiped the weapons. One would have thought they might start drooling. With these weapons, the losses of our Sui clan will be greatly reduced in the upcoming battle against diabolism. Sui Huang looked at the rest of the inborn spiritual weapons, grinned and was beaming with excitement. Alright. Now that you got what you wanted, I'm going to send you guys off. Wang Xian took a glance at the inborn level materials beside him and was prepared to start refining equipment. Alright. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan didn't take offense with Wang Xian's attitude as they were grinning widely for what they had gotten. They hesitated for a moment before asking, Brother Wang Xian, are you leading the Dragon Sect to target diabolism in the upcoming battle? Target diabolism? No. I'm preparing to deal with Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian chuckled and shook his head while a ghoulish light flashed across his eyes. Huh? Deal with Donghua Sacred Sect? The two of them were slightly shocked and frowned. Are you really not resting till one of you has perished? When they wanted to protect Haijiao, the outcome was decided. Wang Xian continued with a smile, Alright. Just be careful in the upcoming battle between the orthodox sects and the devil sections. I'm going to get busy. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan shook their heads, exchanged glances and headed out. Deal with Donghua Sacred Sect? Would the Dragon Sect take action soon? After walking off the floating island, Xiao Quanshan turned to Sui Huang and asked this with a solemn face. It's hard to say. No one really knows what that kid is thinking. However, he's a pretty good person and isn't bad at all at his core. Regardless, let's help each other to reduce our losses for the upcoming battle. Sui Huang heaved a sigh and shook his head. Donghua Sacred Sect made a statement on the Underworld website just a while ago. Oh? What kind of statement? They said that the Dragon Sect annihilating the remains is the right decision. Since they have the capabilities, they should be doing more for the Underworld and eliminating more devil sects. Huh? Donghua Sacred Sect probably did this on purpose. They want the devil sects to go after the Dragon Sect. That's probably what they have in mind. As one of the 4 strongest devil sects, the remains were well regarded in diabolism. Donghua Sacred Sect is fanning the feud on purpose to induce the devil sects to deal with the Dragon Sect. It's going to be trouble now since the Dragon Sect has offended Donghua Sacred Sect in diabolism. Although offending Donghua Sacred Sect in diabolism will be problematic to the Dragon Sect only has 50 disciples. Moreover, all of them are inborn experts. If they really wanted to hide, no one could find them. We can protect their kin for them. Brother Wang Xian has been really generous this time. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan conversed. They weren't going to do anything about the Dragon Sect. Even if they wished, they couldn't. Protecting the kin of Wang Xian could very well be the only thing they could do to help. This was also in gratitude to Wang Xian for gifting them the weapons. Wang Xian didn't know about Sui Huang and Xiao Chuanshan's thoughts. If he knew, he would probably laugh it off. At this moment, Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingyue, Xiao Yu and the rest wouldn't require him to protect them at all. Disregarding their personal strength, Ajaya was still around. Who could possibly harm them in the current underworld? Even if Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi from Diabolism were to attack them together, they wouldn't be able to harm the girls in the slightest. The only shameful thing was, his backyard was on fire. Wang Xian brought all the inborn level materials to the wand forging table and wand forging hammer. He took a deep breath. Refining equipment wasn't very different from ordinary smithing. The most obvious difference would be that the level of the materials differed substantially. Based on the introduction in the Fire God's Secret Book, one would just require the materials and forging technique to craft level 10 and level 11 equipment. They didn't involve the use of spirit arrays. Another difference between equipment refining and smithing was that refining higher level equipment required an art of forging. The forging of the edge of the blade, the forging of a truncheon and many others required the consideration of the conductivity of spiritual energy. For example, when crafting fire attribute inborn spiritual weapons, one had to consider the conductivity and enhancement of fire energy. Ordinary inborn spiritual weapons could enhance an ordinary martial artist's strength by 50%. Powerful inborn spiritual weapons could increase such enhancement to 80%. This greatly depended on one's skill in forging. An exceptionally important issue would be the conductivity of attribute energy. One had to go through thousands of rounds of practice to get it right. Otherwise, some weapons that were crafted would not be able to enhance one's strength. Instead, they would even hinder one's ordinary strength. Other than the art of forging, there is also the selection of materials and the special features of the weapon. Wang Xian pondered as he looked to the materials before him. Combining materials together could bring out even greater energy. The combination of materials was even tougher and required constant experimentation. Naturally, one could also just use a single type of material. Since I can't forge weapons that suit my current strength, I might as well forge some equipment for the Dragonians, Wang Xian thought to himself. He picked up the two inborn level metals, Devil Metal Steel and Tenacious Devil Stone, which he had gotten from the remains. Dragonians wouldn't require weapons as their dragon claws are even stronger than inborn spiritual weapons. I can discount the weapons then. As for defense, even inborn level armor would not be of much use after considering the toughness of their physical bodies. In that case, Wang Xian moved his arm and a mask appeared in his hand. This was the Devil Shadow mask he had obtained from the treasure cove of the remains. After wearing it, one could release a shadow. Although the shadow was illusory, devil attribute cultivators could shroud themselves in devilish aura. This would make the illusory shadow a little more realistic. This was a piece of secondary equipment and its effects would differ from person to person. However, it would be a rather good choice for the Dragonians. Wang Xian moved his hands over the Devil Shadow mask while memorizing every contour on it. He picked up a piece of Devil Metal Steel and placed it on the wand forging table. First, I have to heat the Devil Metal Steel till it melts so I can change its appearance. As a level 13 spiritual forging equipment, the wand forging table had a powerful enhancement. Mold creation. One could create a mold of the equipment to be crafted. After which, one would have to use the wand forging hammer to hammer it into shape before inducing attribute conductivity. Within the wand forging table, flames were imbued. 5 level 12 spiritual flame balls were embedded on it. If the wand forging table wasn't for refining equipment, Wang Xian would have extracted the spiritual flame balls from it. Other than the flames of the wand forging table, one could also use his own flames. The creation of a mold was simple. Melting the metal and refining it was tough. However, the toughest was the management of the conductivity of the equipment. Wang Xian created a mold on the wand forging table. After which, he started smelting and refining the Devil Metal Steel. Let's begin. Wang Xian took a deep breath. With just a thought, a small origin source flame appeared on his palm. His lips curved into a smile as he directed the origin source flame onto the wand forging table. Ding. Refine equipment with the origin source flame. The notification of the system sounded and Wang Xian was beaming with excitement. Following which, the process of refining would start. As the devil metal steel was placed on the origin source flame, it softened rapidly. Wuxia lifted the wand forging hammer and hammered down. All the impurities within were instantly purged. Chapter 523, It's Time to Strike. Chapter 523, It's Time to Strike. Clang clang clang. Bam bam bam. The hammering sound kept coming as Wuxia had not stopped hammering the sheet of devil metal steel according to the forging method in the art of equipment refining. The most amazing effect of using the origin source flame to refine equipment was the removal of impurities. Removal of impurities was a crucial step, as the impurities could affect the properties of conduction and therefore affect the power of the weapons. Secondly, the origin source flame had another strong effect: to soften any types of metals speedily. It could achieve the same temperature between the interior and exterior of the metal. For refining equipment, these effects were like great plugins. After Wuxia placed the devil metal steel in the mold, he quickly hammered it. Soon the shape of a mask was formed. After the semi-finished mask was done, he could proceed with conducting the attributes into the mask. When Wuxia examined the conductivity of the semi-finished mask, he instantly found out that the conductivity was smooth without any blockage. It must be the origin source flame. The so-called conductivity has a simple way of testing. When the attribution passes through, it will straightaway appear at the end of the device. Just like electric conduction. Some have poor or good conductivity. This had to do with the impurities in the materials. The rest did not have much of an impact. It's easy to solve the issue of conductivity when using a single material to craft a weapon. But when it comes to using two or more materials, the conductivity is a key point. Wuxia was elated. Using the origin source flame to refine equipment was such an easy task. Some of the blacksmiths would spend a long time just to make an inborn spiritual weapon. Take Jianghu for example. It was said that he used 3 months just to make the ancient sword of Jianghu. Wuxia took the wand forging hammer, making some small adjustments to the mask. Phew, it's done. Devil Shadow Mask, level 10. A black-colored mask isn't that nice at all. I should draw an abyss on it. The abyss mask looks cool and impressive. Wuxia was wearing smiles as he looked at the mask. He put it on and a shadow emerged beside him. The shadow was vague because he was not using any devil attributions. Once the devil attribution was activated, the shadow would turn realistic, and it could distract the opponent during combat. I'll make 50 of them. Wuxia looked at the material, raised his wand forging hammer, and began to speed up his crafting process. Level 13 Supreme Class Weapons with Origin Source Flame, a crazy flame. Making inborn spiritual weapons was a breeze to him. After the hammering sound continued for more than 2 hours, Wuxia had completed 50 Devil Shadow Masks. But he did not stop and went on to make other stuff. It was another piece of auxiliary equipment, a pair of devil wings. The speed of Dragonians was a flaw compared to their power and defense. If they had a pair of wings, it could significantly enhance their speed. On the other hand, wings and masks had a complementary effect. Since Wuxia had the origin source flame, he thought of an idea: to make the Devil Shadow Mask and Devil Wings into a suit. This way they could complement each other, making it a simple spiritual weapon suit. The suit had one feature, and that was a complement. There were 2 types of complements. One was the spiritual complement, and one was the power complement. The spiritual complement was somewhat more advanced, while the power complement was simpler. But to Wuxia this was a piece of cake. However, making a pair of wings was undoubtedly much more difficult. The 3 materials required were tenacious devil stone, wind feather stone, and golden metal rock. With this 3-metal combination, it added a lot of difficulty to the crafting of the weapon. The tenacious devil stone was the primary material, while the other 2 materials were supplementary. Wuxia had to bring out the characteristics of these materials at the same time, not to affect the attribution conductivity. Bam bam bam. For the whole day Wuxia had not stopped his hammering and research. Making auxiliary weapons like the wings proved to be too difficult, as Wuxia spent 8 hours to make one. The pair of devil wings spread out 1.5 meters on each side, 3 meters with both sides extended out. The entire wings were pure black with 5 frames supporting them in the middle. After adding the wind feather stone, the entire wings were as light as a feather. When they conducted with their devilish aura, they could soar effortlessly into the sky. That would increase their speed by another 50%. But before using the devil wings, one had to embed a spiritual stone at the position of the wind feather stone to activate its effect. Fortunately, the consumption was not massive and it could be brushed off. Flap. Wang Xian spread out the wings with a crisp clear sound. After he tested them, the wings shrunk and would not be affecting anything. Even spreading the wings during a battle would not have the slightest hindrance to movement. Wang Xian had a satisfied look on his face. After putting on the mask, it would be simply impressive if he had another black trench coat. Should I make one too? Wang Xian raised his eyebrow as he was intrigued. But after looking at the material, it was a pity that the materials he had were insufficient. He shook his head without any choice. After putting on the mask, 2 pieces of metal could buckle on the wings, linking the 2 items, creating the simple effect of a suit. Wang Xian moved around, and an illusory shadow emerged beside him. With his lips curled, he continued making his devil wings. Dragon King. When the moon was hanging in the night sky, Missouri Yuan called out from outside. Come in. Wang Xian wiped the sweat on his forehead. Even he was a little tired after crafting weapons for the entire day. Dragon King, Omniscient Group is now under our control, said Mo Yuan to Wang Xian excitedly. Under our control? That fast? A trace of thrill flashed across Wang Xian's eyes. Yes, there were not many people at the higher management level. On top of that, they were ordinary people. Hence, it was easy for us to take control, and now we have gained access to the information in Omniscient Group. Mo Yuan nodded his head with force. Great. Wang Xian squinted his eyes. From now on, collect all the information on Donghua Sacred Sect. Since we won't rest unless one of us is dead, we should do something about it. As Wang Xian spoke, he drew his lips. Yes, Dragon King. We'll get Omniscient Group to send us all the information about Donghua Sacred Sect. Okay. Wang Xian nodded. Seeing the well-made inborn spiritual weapons, he smiled and took out his phone to rest on the chair. When he read the messages on the Underworld forum, he put up a faint smile. Everyone was discussing the Dragon King and Dragon Sect. The news of the remains being annihilated had shaken the entire Underworld. After Donghua Sacred Sect released another statement, all the martial artists of the Underworld were hoping the Dragon King and Dragon Sect could wipe out the rest of the Devil sections. All of them were discussing the Dragon King and Dragon Sect's strength. Dragon Sect was known to be the next strongest sacred sect after Donghua Sacred Sect. At the same time, all of Diabolism had noticed the fact that Wang Xian had annihilated the remains. Some of them had posted threads on the Underworld forum, saying they would annihilate the Dragon King to avenge the remains. Chapter 524 Killing Experts from Donghua Sacred Sect 1. Chapter 524 Killing Experts from Donghua Sacred Sect 1. I hope the Dragon Sect can annihilate more devil sections. In that case, annihilating the entire Diabolism will be an easy task together with the strength of the orthodox sects. Even Donghua Sacred Sect wishes to see the Dragon Sect annihilate more devil sections. They probably have high regard for the strength of the Dragon Sect. Let's hope that the Dragon King can eradicate more devil sects. Wang Xian noticed there were more and more threads of this nature after Donghua Sacred Sect made its statement. Besides that, there were threads that cheered on the Dragon Sect and the Dragon King. They proudly boasted about the invincibility of the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect, the Dragon King who saw all evil as his enemies, for whom eliminating Diabolism entirely would be a walk in the park. There were all kinds of discussions. Subsequently, the devil sects made their statements to warn the Dragon Sect and Dragon King to stay low and that they would be taking revenge for the remains. The entire underworld was exceptionally lively. Looking through these comments, ruthlessness flashed in the eyes of Wang Xian. It seems like Donghua Sacred Sect is truly scheming. They hope to see me annihilate more devil sects? I have no feud with the devil sects, but I do have one against you. Wang Xian's expression turned cold as ice. Looking at the messages popping up on his phone, he stood up and continued refining spiritual equipment. The effects of this inborn spiritual equipment would be first tested on Donghua Sacred Sect. After working through an entire night, Wang Xian had crafted 50 sets of Devil Shadow Mask and Devil Wings. Seeing the inborn spiritual equipment that was glowing with a dull light, he revealed a satisfied smile. Dragon King. These are the pieces of information that Omniscient Group has gathered on Donghua Sacred Sect. Soon after, Mo Yuan carried a set of information to Wang Xian. Can we find an entry point? A few days have passed and it's time to give Donghua Sacred Sect a surprise. Wang Xian looked through the information as he asked Mo Yuan. Entry point. Mo Yuan sank into deep thought. Soon, he lifted his head and answered, Dragon King, we do have an opportunity tomorrow. What kind of opportunity? Nie Wushuang of the Donghua Sacred Sect and Emperor Qi of Diabolism have arranged to meet at Huashan for the supreme battle. 80% of the inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect will likely attend this major battle. However, there will be some who remain to guard an area. Donghua spiritual or mine? Answered Mo Yuan. Donghua spiritual or mine? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow as he flipped through the information in his hands. Other than having Nie Wushuang, the reason why Donghua Sacred Sect could become the strongest sacred sect in the underworld was because of the spiritual or mine. A spiritual or mine that one could excavate spiritual stones. Based on the information on record, Donghua Sacred Sect could excavate 40 to 50,000 spiritual stones from the spiritual or mine annually. 40 to 50,000 spiritual stones was an insane amount. Because of the existence of the spiritual or mine, the number of inborn experts in Donghua Sacred Sect easily triumphed in the underworld. Donghua spiritual or mine is just 50 kilometers away from the sacred grounds of Donghua Sacred Sect. If we ambush them tomorrow, we can easily kill all the experts that remain to guard to spiritual or mine. Mo Yuan answered confidently. 50 kilometers? Wang Xian raised an eyebrow. Yeah, 50 kilometers. A Dan Realm expert will be leading the guards with at least a dozen odd inborn experts. It's an incredibly important location for Donghua Sacred Sect. Mo Yuan nodded his head. In that case, we don't have to wait to attack them until they are away. The people in the underworld would believe that we are afraid of Donghua Sacred Sect. Since we are going to attack, we shall do it tonight. A beam of ruthlessness gleamed in Wang Xian's eyes as he spoke. Tonight. Mo Yuan pondered for a moment before asking, Dragon King, would you want to go with us? Naturally. Nie Wushuang from Donghua Sacred Sect will likely have reached the budding realm. If he is there, you guys wouldn't be a match. Wang Xian nodded his head before continuing. Inform all disciples of the Dragon Sect to head towards Donghua spiritual or mine. The battle has begun. The battle has begun. Wang Xian didn't have the intention to target with Donghua Sacred Sect so quickly. However, he wanted to give Donghua Sacred Sect a lesson after seeing their statements on the underworld. Otherwise, Donghua Sacred Sect would assume that his Dragon Sect was just a joke. Since they had decided to not rest till a side had perished, so be it. Wang Xian smirked coldly. Distribute these devil shadow masks and devil wings to all the Dragonians and test out the strength. Yes, Dragon King. Mo Yuan nodded his head. Soon, the disciples of the Dragon Sect arrived one after another. Let's go. The group of Dragonians kept the devil shadow masks and devil wings as they followed behind Wang Xian towards Donghua Sacred Sect. They didn't take any form of transportation vehicles. Dragon Sect was currently in an opposing stand to Donghua Sacred Sect. There was no way Donghua Sacred Sect would not guard against the Dragon Sect. Moreover, Donghua Sacred Sect definitely had its own intelligence channels. If he had headed towards Donghua Sacred Sect with so many people, they would definitely be alerted. As such, Wang Xian and the group of Dragonians chose to fly there directly. In a deserted area, a group of people were in black clothes and wore black hideous-looking masks. Behind them, they had pairs of wings that spanned over 3 meters. The group of 50-odd people flew rapidly across the sky. They were just like a flash of shadows as they moved ahead at a tremendous speed. Inborn-level wings can fully enable an inborn expert to fly rapidly across the sky. In fact, they are even faster than airplanes. Wang Xian mumbled as he looked ahead of him. At this very moment, the higher management of Donghua Sacred Sect was gathered in a hall in Donghua Sacred Sect. No one was in the master's seat. Nie Wuxia and several other Dan Realm experts were seated closer to the front. Other than the 3 Dan Realm experts that had shown themselves during the alliance of the Orthodox sects, there were 2 other old men by their side with faint auras emitting from them. Tomorrow will be the major battle between our sect leader and Emperor Qi. At that time, Old Xiang will guard the sect while Old Zhou will guard the spiritual or mine. As for the rest, we will follow the sect leader. Nie Wuxia instructed the other old men around him. I really want to witness the battle of the ages of the underworld and see how insanely strong our sect leader is currently. an old man commented. Old Joe, we can't leave the spiritual or mine unguarded, Wuxia said to the old man with a smile. It doesn't matter if it is guarded or not. Who dares to have ulterior motives on Donghua sacred sect? The old man snorted confidently while clearly looking displeased. Hee. Wuxia chuckled. That dragon king from the dragon sect has the guts to stand against us. How brazen. The dragon king of the dragon sect is indeed arrogant and fearless. After offending us, they went to annihilate the remains. Even the devil sects are looking to kill the dragon king to take revenge for the remains. That dragon king is indeed strong, but we will definitely be able to kill him if we fight him together. Of course, it wouldn't be a problem if the 5 of us worked together. Although the dragon king is arrogant, he isn't weak at all. Nonetheless, he will likely not live long after offending us and the devil sections. He will either be killed by us or by the devil sects. Wuxia chuckled. We still can't drop our guard right now. If the dragon king were to ambush us when we leave, it would be problematic. We have an ancient defensive spirit array over the spiritual or mind that can even trap any Dan realm experts. If he's here, we will just trap him here. The old man who was addressed as Old Joe smirked and continued, a dragon king isn't a cause for concern yet. If he dares to come, I'll turn him into a trapped beast. He's indeed not a cause of concern. However, the devil sects are running amok. If it were peacetime, the dragon sect would have been annihilated. There's no way he could be arrogant like now. Teske. Wuxia snorted and killing intent flashed in his eyes. Ha. Leave the spiritual or mine to me and don't worry about it. I'll just kill anyone who comes. Old Joe said while brimming with killing intent. Chapter 525 Killing Experts from Donghua Sacred Sect 2. Chapter 525 Killing Experts from Donghua Sacred Sect 2. Donghua spiritual or mine was situated in the Qilu mountain range. Spiritual energy had diminished during the ending of the Age of Dharma, leaving fewer and fewer spiritual or mine in the world. Within the territory of China, the only spiritual or mine was guarded by Donghua Sacred Sect. And not many ancestral sects knew of the exact location of Donghua spiritual or mine as it was top secret. As omniscient group and the enemy of Donghua Sacred Sect, Diabolism knew the location of Donghua spiritual or mine very well. The mechanical sound that had been blasted for the entire day on Donghua spiritual or mine had finally ended at night. Large pieces of heavy machinery were placed in the spiritual or mine. Surrounding Donghua spiritual or mine were woods towering at 12 meters high just to conceal its location. This place was totally secluded even though houses were built by the side of the spiritual or mine. The interior of the houses were simple but luxurious. Inborn experts walked out of the houses around the mine and did their routine checks. All clear, a middle-aged man said with a smile on his face. Staying put at this isolated spiritual or mine really bores me to death. We won't even get to view the battle between sect leader and Emperor Qi from Diabolism. Holding a vajra in his hand, a bald, middle-aged man not far away shook his head and remarked plainly. During normal times it's fine to have lesser people over here. But it's the critical period now, and this place needs to be heavily guarded. Isn't Supreme Old Joe staying here every day? An elder smiled to the bald man as he spoke. Humph, it's all because of damn Diabolism and Dragon Sect. Otherwise we won't have to keep watch over here every day. The bald, middle-aged man swung the vajra in his hand. If I see them I'll send them to hell. Especially that Dragon King from Dragon Sect. God damn it. The Dragon King of Dragon Sect is not our concern. When we settle Diabolism, the Dragon Sect will be easily settled as well. The old man replied without any emotion. But we should not belittle them. After all, they annihilated the remains. Hence, their strength must be strong. I wonder how a 20-year-old lad possesses such daunting strength. Do you guys think he chanced upon something great? That's for sure. The rise of the Dragon King was too fast and furious. He must have inherited some powerful ancient sect's legacy. After we settle Diabolism, the first thing that Donghua Sacred Sect will do is get rid of Dragon Sect. If we can take over his legacy, it will be another boost to Donghua Sacred Sect. Fancy defeating Hai Jiao at age 20. What a scary legacy he has. We cannot let him develop further. All the inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect were exchanging conversations. The bald, middle-aged man with the Vajra suddenly looked around. If I were the Dragon King, I would come here. Then we could trap the beast and slay the dragon. If Dragon Sect found out about this place, they might really come over. But they should be sneaking in for an attack tomorrow. I dare him to come today, since all the experts of Donghua Sacred Sect can rush over here in 10 minutes. Okay, let's get some rest now. The old man gestured a dismissive wave at the group of people and flitted to one of the rooms. The bald, middle-aged man shook his head slightly as he placed the Vajra on his shoulder and headed to the room where he was staying. Her? At this moment, his body was suddenly stifled as he narrowed his eyes and peered somewhere in front of him. A trace of horror and surprise flashed across his eyes. Someone is flying towards us. The bald, middle-aged man sounded out softly as he clenched his Vajra tightly while he alerted his companions around him. Her? The inborn experts who had just reached the porches of their houses were stunned for a moment and looked ahead. Dong dong dong. The sound of a bell was clearly heard within a radius of a few kilometers around Donghua Spiritual or Mine. Someone is here. The disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect walked out from the houses, observing the surroundings with doubts. Why would anyone come at this time? Within a room in the most central house, Supreme Old Zhou of Donghua Sacred Sect opened his eyes. With a swift move, he appeared outside of the house instantly. 15 inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect were standing in the air, while hundreds of level 8 and level 9 disciples were standing below with their eyes fixed ahead. Old Zhou made a quick move and took the forefront position. He squinted his eyes slightly and peered ahead. Over there were 50 black figures with scary masks and pairs of black devil wings behind them. They were hovering towards them, looking menacing. 50. They have 50 men. The bald, middle-aged man glared ahead with cold eyes and remarked in an icy tone. 50 men? The rest of them gazed suspiciously ahead. 50 men? The Dragon Sect. They have devilish attributes. On top of that, they have 50 men. It's the Dragon Sect, no doubt. They are barging into Donghua Spiritual or Mine. Prepare to fight. Cold bellows were heard from everyone, while Old Zhou fixed his gaze on the figure who was in the middle. He was wearing the same mask and had a similar pair of wings, but Old Zhou could still tell that it was the figure of a young man. At the same time, he could sense a horrifying aura coming from that young man. Dragon King of Dragon Sect, what a surprise. I didn't expect that you would choose this time to break into our Donghua Spiritual or Mine. There was a flash of cold radiance in Old Zhou's eyes. Contact the experts from the Ancestral Sect. Today we'll hold everyone from Dragon Sect over here. This is also a good sign for the battle of the sect leader tomorrow. Old Zhou revealed a faint smile as he instructed the disciple beside him. Yes. A disciple nodded his head immediately as he delivered the message instantaneously to Donghua Sacred Sect. A large number of experts of Donghua Sacred Sect would arrive 10 minutes later. They are here to receive us. Seeing a dozen people standing in front in the air, coldness swept across Wang Xian's eyes. Just with 10 odd inborn experts? How would they dare to receive us here? It looks like they have some hidden cards. Wang Xian squinted his eyes a little as he scanned around him with red-blue radiance in his eyes. Her? A special layer of energy appeared within his vision. He had seen this when he was at Huashan. Obviously, this bout of energy was weaker by 100 times as compared to Huashan. The hidden energy encompassed an area of 5 kilometers. Donghua Sacred Sect is just 50 kilometers away from here. Their reinforcements will be able to reach here in 10 minutes. We must kill them all by then. Wang Xian commanded the surrounding Dragonians in a dull voice. Yes, Dragon King. Wang Xian jerked his devil wings behind him, and so did the 49 Dragonians behind him, emanating bouts of formidable aura. The intense killing aura surged from their bodies while devil clouds were coalescing in the sky, as if devils were emerging from the abyss. It was petrifying and domineering. Chapter 526 Trapped Beasts? Killing the Dragon? Chapter 526 Trapped Beasts? Killing the Dragon. What terrifying auras! Is this the full strength of the Dragon Sect? So powerful. Devil clouds are even coalescing over the sky. It's no surprise they could annihilate the remains. The Dragon Sect is indeed not simple. When the terrifying cloud of aura moved rapidly towards them with the devil clouds above them, the crowd of Donghua Sacred Sect was astonished. This strength could easily annihilate all of us. The bald middle-aged man felt a chill run down his spine when he saw the dragon sect within 1,000 meters of them. They are indeed strong and aren't something we can withstand. It's no surprise that Wuxia and the other three weren't confident in keeping them behind on the day of the alliance of the orthodox sects. Old Zhou looked plainly at the approaching experts of the dragon sect. When he saw them stopping before him, he revealed a chilling smirk and shouted, "How arrogant of the dragon sect to barge into our Donghua spiritual or mine at this moment." Wang Xian and the Dragonians stopped in the air 1,000 meters away from them. They extended their wings and resembled terrifying devils from hell. It doesn't matter the time, nor do we need to resort to ambushing to kill the people from the Donghua Sacred Sect. We are killing you guys here to send out a warning. Moreover, this is just the beginning. Wang Xian looked at the disciples of the Donghua Sacred Sect before him and spoke plainly. Arrogant and presumptuous. Old Zhou stared emotionlessly at Wang Xian as he remarked, "You must be the Dragon King. Since you dare to be here today, you can rest here forever. This is an auspicious land after all. Alright, we have no time to chat with you here. In 9 minutes, the reinforcements of the Donghua Sacred Sect will be here." Wang Xian looked across the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect as he shouted, "Killing you guys will be a reminder to the Donghua Sacred Sect that our dragon sect isn't just kidding when we say we won't rest till one party perishes. Go." Wang Xian instructed the Dragonians behind him. "Kill." All the Dragonians behind Wang Xian shouted. With immense killing intent overflowing, they charged towards Donghua Sacred Sect. TSK. Seeing the disciples of the dragon sect charging towards him, Old Zhou turned cold as ice. The inborn experts behind him also gave cold grins. Who would have expected the dragon sect to be made up of a bunch of fools? Perhaps they are in over their heads after annihilating the remains. When the inborn experts of Donghua Sacred Sect witnessed what had transpired, they weren't worried at all. Instead, they were grinning with contempt. Annihilating a foolish sect with 5,000 spiritual stones. What a bad deal. Old Zhou looked emotionlessly at the group of Dragon Sect's disciples charging ahead. He moved his arm and shouted, "Move back! Move back!" The group of inborn experts shouted as they retreated rapidly. Screech, screech, screech. The moment they retreated, the space within a span of 5 kilometers seemed to be distorting. An invisible shield fell from the sky suddenly and shrouded the entire region. The group of Dragonians that had charged ahead was surprised. Attack. Mo Yuan's expression turned solemn as his palm underwent a terrifying transformation. A terrifying dragon claw appeared. Behind him, the Dragonians' palms also underwent terrifying changes. Bam, bam, bam. Dragon claws attacked the invisible shield before them and terrifying destructive force fell upon it. Unmovable. Unshakable. There were no ripples or any signs of movement when the attacks of the Dragonians fell on it. This greatly shocked the Dragonians. The disciples of the Dragonians are really strong. When an expert from Donghua Sacred Sect saw the attacks from the Dragonians, fear flashed in his eyes as he commented solemnly. "So what? They are still trapped beasts now." A middle-aged man standing by the side said with a faint smile. "That's true." The old man grinned and looked at the disciples of the dragon sect with contempt. He commented, "They are strong but aren't very intelligent." "Ah, that's right. They are nothing compared to the scheming followers of diabolism. If diabolism had the same intelligence level as them, it would be great for us. Come, shall we celebrate?" Ah. When the disciples of the Donghua Sacred Sect saw the dragon sect being trapped within the spirit array, they smiled confidently. They stood outside the shield and constantly ridiculed them. "What's this? A spirit array of the legends?" Looking at the transparent shield before him, Mo Yuan looked bitter. He looked across and shouted, "Attack! Kill!" The Dragonians flapped their wings rapidly and charged towards the spirit array shield. Rumble. Terrifying forces that could even kill an ordinary inborn expert fell on the spirit array shield, causing dull clashing sounds. However, the shield wasn't moved. There wasn't even any sign of movement. They must be dreaming to think they can destroy the spirit array. Strong contempt gleamed in the eyes of old Zhou as he looked at the Dragonians attacking the shield. He felt ridiculed by the arrogance and conceit of the dragon sect. Just today he had heard about Wuxia and the rest being a little surprised by the Dragon King and being a little wary of the Dragon Sect. Now it would seem like they were nothing. When the experts of our Donghua sacred sect are here, it will also be the time they will be killed. An inborn expert chuckled. Supreme Elder, the people of the Dragon Sect are so presumptuous to announce they won't rest till one side perishes. Can I broadcast what's happening here to the underworld so the rest will know the consequences of going against us? That's a good idea. Let the whole underworld know how the foolish Dragon Sect has been annihilated by us. Ah! A disciple shouted excitedly. Old Joe, who was standing in the middle, smiled faintly and nodded his head. Hee. When that middle-aged man saw the approval given by the Supreme Elder, he was beaming with excitement. He took out his phone, took a few pictures and entered the underworld website. The insignificant Dragon Sect is just a pile of trash. They aren't qualified to stand toe-to-toe with us. Today we will be killing them off. They are now trapped beasts waiting to be slaughtered. In the future there will be no Dragon Sect or Dragon King. The middle-aged man grinned as he uploaded the pictures he had taken to the underworld website and started the thread. He could already foresee the forces and martial artists of the underworld being shocked by the news. Just a day ago the Dragon Sect had annihilated the remains. This had shocked the entire underworld as everyone was astonished by the strength of the Dragon Sect. And today the Dragon Sect would be annihilated by their Donghua sacred sect. From here onwards, the status of their Donghua sacred sect would be unshakable and no one would dare to challenge them. The outcome of the Dragon Sect would be a great example of those who dared to offend Donghua sacred sect. They are now just trapped beasts. In the future there will be no arrogant Dragon Sect or Dragon King. Old Joe smiled with contempt at the Dragonians who were still attacking the spirit array. Chapter 527, 1 minute. Chapter 527, 1 minute. What? Trap the beast and slay the dragon? What just happened? Are the guys from the Dragon Sect trapped by those from the Donghua sacred sect? The post was up for barely a minute, and it was the spotlight of the underworld immediately. Upon clicking the post, the various martial artists of the underworld were shocked to see a photo of a group of masked Dragonians. Are those people wearing masks with black wings disciples from the Dragon Sect? Is the Dragon King among them? Who posted this? Is this from the Donghua sacred sect? This is not real, is it? From the photo, it looks like the guys from the Dragon Sect have been trapped? Does this mean that the Donghua sacred sect has raised an attack on the Dragon Sect? No way. The Dragon Sect destroyed the remains only yesterday, much to the delight of everyone. But today they landed themselves in the hands of the Donghua sacred sect. This spells total annihilation for the Dragon Sect. The 50 people in the photo do look like they are from the Dragon Sect. By putting this information out, the disciples from the Donghua sacred sect most certainly want the Dragon Sect dead. From the background in the photo, it seems like it was taken in the mountains. Could it be that the Dragon Sect had secretly planned for a sneak attack on the Donghua sacred sect, but was completely wiped out by them instead? It does seem possible for the Dragon Sect to launch a sneak attack on Donghua sacred sect. Going by the character of the Dragon King, he had already intended to fight the Donghua sacred sect till the end. Thus he'll not let them off easily. But by the looks of things, it looks like they were trapped by the Donghua sacred sect. The Dragon King is too self-conceited. Maybe with the annihilation of the remains yesterday, he felt confident enough to take on the Donghua sacred sect. But doing that is just an act of courting death. Gone. The Dragon Sect is completely gone now. They chose to take on the Donghua sacred sect while they are still leagues below their level. Countless martial artists of the underworld expressed their comments under the post. Nobody expected that this would have happened. Yesterday the Dragon Sect destroyed the remains. Today they are on the way to being destroyed by the Donghua sacred sect. The turn of events left the martial artists of the underworld filled with emotions. The Dragon King is too self-conceited. That is the Donghua sacred sect we are talking about. Their presence is a sign of invincibility in the underworld. Provoking them will lead to the downfall of the Dragon Sect for sure. I knew that the Dragon Sect and Dragon King would not live long, not with their arrogance. It makes total sense that they get wiped out. One of the martial artists commented under the post. The Dragon Sect had lived their worth. By destroying the remains, they got rid of one of the underworld's greatest nemeses. But the Dragon Sect and the Dragon King were threats themselves. This is good riddance. Support the Donghua sacred sect. The news put a smile on the faces of some martial artists, who were in support of the decimation of the Dragon Sect. Although some other sacred sects were filled with mixed emotions when they first saw the post, their faces lit up with smiles eventually. To them it was certainly a good thing that the Dragon Sect was gone. They did not want such a strong yet unbridled force to remain in the underworld. While the underworld was shocked by the content of the post, Wuxia was found standing in the center of a spirit array. Faced with the smug looks of the gang of Donghua Sacred Sect disciples, he was seen beaming with a smile. Trap the beast and slay the dragon? You will have to be able to trap the dragon first, Wuxia said with a slight sneer. He looked up and slowly raised his right arm. In a split second, the entire arm underwent a horrific change. The entire arm emitted a golden glow, turning gold in color, and then transforming into a golden dragon claw. The partial dragonification replaced his arm with a solid dragon claw. Haha, trying to break our spirit array? Stop your wishful thinking. This is one of the only 2 legendary spirit arrays that our Donghua Sacred Sect practices. It's impossible for any Dan Realm experts to break this array. Old Zhou saw the transformation on Wuxia's arm and had a look of contempt across his face. Really? Your lives are about to end in just 1 more minute. Wuxia said with a faint grin on his face as he fixed his eyes on the Supreme Elder of Donghua Sacred Sect. Haha, let me tell you this. You all have only 5 more minutes to live. After the 5 minutes are up, our experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect will annihilate your entire dragon sect. Old Zhou laughed in the direction of Wuxia. The group of inborn experts behind Old Zhou slowly raised their heads with their arms folded. Dragon King, give us your best shot. We will cheer for you from here. Ah. They guffawed with sneers. Oh, really? Wuxia chuckled at the sight of their laughter. He moved his body and launched an attack straight ahead. With a leap, he lunged forward with an attack, clenching his dragon claw tightly. Dead ahead, the gang of Donghua Sacred Sect disciples looked on, still with smiles on their faces. The power of the spirit array was tested personally by their sect leader. No Dan expert could ever think of breaking it. They showed no signs of anxiousness and their faces remained calm. Bam! When the dragon claw hit the spirit array, the array showed no signs of wavering. Haha, what a futile attempt at using your power. The bald, middle-aged expert witnessed the scene and laughed out arrogantly. Haha, Wuxia looked up and grinned, his eyes sweeping across the entire gang. Kill? Kill. As soon as he finished muttering the word, the spirit array suddenly showed signs of cracking as if a piece of glass was swiftly breaking apart. What? This? The cracks of the spirit array shocked the entire Donghua Sacred Sect with smiles on their faces froze in an instant. What's this? Old Zhou's eyes shrunk uncontrollably. He astonishingly realized that the strike from the Dragon King moments ago had penetrated the spirit array. The strike penetrating the spirit array happened all too quickly, as if the force had caused time to freeze momentarily before the cracks became visible. Kill? The group of Dragonians alongside Mo Yuan showed an icy glance in their eyes. They wore the abyss masks, and the wings on their backs began to flap as they attacked the Donghua Sacred Sect disciples at a frightful speed. Their arms were now slightly quivering as they looked at their approaching enemies with horror. No, he is capable of bursting an attack from the budding realm. How can he be that strong? Old Zhou's eyes twitched at the sight of the attacking group of experts from the Dragon Sect. Seeing the Dragon King had his eyes fixated on him, he was petrified. Run. Right now. In a flash, Old Zhou made the decision to retreat. They were no match for the Dragon Sect, not with their ability. Without their spirit array, they had completely lost their right to battle. Run for your life. Trembling in fear, the surrounding group of inborn experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect tried to escape when the Dragonians approached them with murderous looks on their faces. 5 more minutes. Just hang on for another 5 minutes and the reinforcements from the Ancestral Sect will be here. We will be able to survive by then. The bald, middle-aged expert said with his eyes twitching furiously. Gritting his teeth, he tried to run away. Do you really think you can escape? Mo Yuan said with a cold smile on his face, glaring at the Donghua Sacred Sect experts. The devil wings on the backs of the masked Dragonians fluttered violently. All of you from the Donghua Sacred Sect must die. There is no escape for any of you. Bam. The devil wings moved with excitement, exuding a black luster from the wings. The spiritual stone mounted on their devil wings channeled the powers of the wind feather stone, making them feel as light as feathers. With a gentle charge, they were able to increase their speed instantaneously by more than 50%. Chapter 528. You are a demon. Chapter 528. You are a demon. When the Dragonians triggered the effects of the devil wings, all the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect could feel a terrifying aura approaching them from behind. Shit. Their wings can greatly increase their speed. Sensing the fast-approaching Dragonian behind him, the bald middle-aged man was flabbergasted. He gritted his teeth, held the Vajra tightly in his hand and turned around forcefully. Among the inborn experts, I have not encountered anyone who is a match for me in Donghua Sacred Sect. I can still pull one of you to the grave with me. The bald middle-aged man grimaced in fear. The Vajra glowed dazzlingly as he swung down heavily towards a Dragonian. Wang. What? Just as the Vajra was about to land on the Dragonian, an identical Dragonian appeared beside him. This took the bald middle-aged man by surprise as his actions slowed. TSK. A cold snort resounded as the dragon claw of the Dragonian attacked towards the bald middle-aged man. The bald middle-aged man was astonished as he shifted the Vajra across his body. Bam! A Dragonian and an illusory shadow attacked the bald middle-aged man with identical movements, taking the bald middle-aged man by complete surprise. Bam! As the dragon claw swept across the shoulder of the bald middle-aged man, a long wound was torn open instantly. The bald middle-aged man was shocked. At this moment, the attack from the Dragonian fell once again. One strike came after another with immense force. What was most terrifying was still the speed. Within close proximity, the Dragonian could shift his attack easily. Terrifying attacks together with the distractions of the devil shadow left the bald middle-aged man with no strength to retaliate. Arg. In the end, the bald middle-aged man let out a desperate cry. Arg. At this moment, incessant cries filled the sky. All the Dragonians had the strength to challenge those who were stronger than them. Now that they had the inborn level devil shadow masks and devil wings as enhancements, the experts from Donghua Sacred Sect wouldn't be able to stand against them. As for those disciples who had not reached the inborn realm, they were easily slaughtered. All they saw was a devil shadow dashing toward them. The next moment they would feel vitality quickly leaving their bodies. You! How dare you slaughter the disciples from our Donghua Sacred Sect? At this moment old Zhou, who had been standing in the middle, locked down by Wang Xian, had noticed the disciples around him being easily killed. He glowered at Wang Xian with blood-red eyes as he growled. So what if we did? Since your Donghua Sacred Sect dared to offend the Dragon Sect, you must have had the understanding that you guys would be killed by us. Wang Xian stared coldly at old Zhou. When he finished his words, he also struck. In that case, I'll see how strong the Dragon King really is. Seeing Wang Xian charging towards him, old Zhou lifted his right hand and a long sword appeared in it. The dullish yellow longsword was incomparably fearsome as old Zhou swung it towards Wang Xian. Rumble. Terrifying cracks extended as the tough floor split rapidly. The edge of the sword went for Wang Xian directly. Wang Xian waved his arm as the cracks extending towards him were dispersed. He smirked and made an instantaneous shift towards old Zhou. Today you have to die too. When old Zhou heard Wang Xian, his heart skipped a beat. He clenched onto the long sword in his hand tightly, gritted his teeth and roared, "There are only 4 minutes left. You can kill me? Jesuke." As I said, it won't take more than a minute. Wang Xian squinted his eyes as he swung his dragon claws towards old Zhou. Although I'm not a match for you, I'll still be able to escape if I want to. Hearing Wang Xian, old Zhou was exceptionally gloomy. He moved and fled immediately. Rumble. However, a huge 2-meter wall rose from the ground behind him all of a sudden. In just an instant his escape route was sealed. This greatly surprised him. Escape? That's not an option. Wang Xian smiled faintly as his golden claws tore across. How can this be? Aren't you a fire attribute cultivator? Why are you using earth and metal attribute? Seeing Wang Xian's attack, old Zhou was overwhelmed with fear. He instantly tried to dodge to the side. However, the momentary blockage by the stone wall had exhausted all the advantage he had for escaping. The dragon claw grabbed towards Old Zhou's head. Old Zhou was prepared for it. He instantly swung the long sword in his hand ruthlessly towards the dragon claw. Boom. Shockwaves from the terrifying clash reverberated and Old Zhou pivoted off the terrifying strength to escape. Swish swish swish. However, the trees before him started growing and wrapping towards his body. This frightened Old Zhou as he swung his long swords towards the surrounding trees. While he was distracted from chopping the trees, a terrifying dragon claw penetrated his body. You are a demon. Feeling his body being pierced through, Old Zhou's eyes were filled with desperation. He turned around and looked fearfully at Wang Xian. The source of the fear came from the bottom of his heart. He had not experienced this even from his sect leader. Creepy attacks and the ability to use multiple attributes. He wasn't a human. He was a demon. Nope. I'm a divine dragon. When Wang Xian's final 5 words reached him, his vision was starting to fade. Bam. A Dan realm expert and the supreme elder of Donghua Sacred Sect had fallen to the ground. At this moment, Mo Yuan reported, Dragon King, all the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect have been killed without exception. Wang Xian nodded his head. 50 Dragonians against 15 inborn experts. That should have been complete domination. In a one-on-one situation, a Dragonian would still be able to kill an inborn expert within a minute. The several times difference in strength would only make it quicker. The reinforcements of the Donghua Sacred Sect will probably be here in 4 minutes. Wang Xian looked around him. He had no intentions of looking for spiritual stones. He turned to Mo Yuan and said plainly, didn't Donghua Sacred Sect upload this incident on the Underworld website? In that case, let's add in the outcome for them. Yes, Dragon King. Mo Yuan chuckled. He took a phone from one of the disciples of Donghua Sacred Sect, looked across with contempt and took several photos. After which, he entered the Underworld website and saw the hottest thread started by that disciple of Donghua Sacred Sect. Trap beast? Slaughtering the dragons? Our Dragon King has made it clear that it won't stop till one party perishes. Today's just the beginning. With roughly 20 words and no further elaborations, Mo Yuan appended a few additional pictures. Those were pictures of the corpses of disciples, inborn experts and the supreme elder of Donghua Sacred Sect. After posting the comment, Mo Yuan nodded his head at Wang Xian. Let's go. I'll leave this surprise for Donghua Sacred Sect. Wang Xian commented plainly. Taking flight, they headed back towards River Town. Haha. Who would have expected the foolish dragon sect would dare to barge into the spiritual or mind today? Even the heavens are helping us. Soon after Wang Xian left with the Dragonians, a peal of unruly laughter reverberated from afar. Chapter 529, Rather offend the King of Hades than the Dragon King. Chapter 529, Rather offend the King of Hades than the Dragon King. With much excitement, Wuxia rushed over from the Donghua Sacred Sect along with its group of top experts. 50 experts from the Dragon Sect had been trapped by the Spirit Array while on their way to the Donghua Spiritual or Mine. Wuxia and the gang got rather worked up when they received the news. The Dragon Sect and Dragon King were asking for it. To be stuck within the Spirit Array of the Donghua Spiritual or spelled doom for the entire Dragon Sect, as it would then make them an easy kill. Yet, in spite of their disregard on the surface, they were still met with a tinge of trepidation when it came to the Dragon Sect. The Dragon King had defeated the Lord of Sea Serpent Island, and his Dragon Sect proceeded to wipe the remains out, all of which had displayed the prowess of the Dragon Sect. And while they were also the formidable Donghua Sacred Sect, they did not have the prowess to annihilate the Dragon Sect with the mere deployment of a few members. This was especially so given the number of inborn experts within the Dragon Sect, 50 to be exact. The figure was enough to cause massive trouble for the Donghua Sacred Sect. But even this trouble would pass now that the Dragon Sect had been trapped in the Spirit Array. Today spells a good omen. Our sect leader will definitely be able to slay Emperor Qi of Diabolism tomorrow. An elder said to Wuxia with a wide smile across his face. Given the prowess of the sect leader, killing Emperor Qi is going to be a piece of cake. Wuxia responded while his lips arched upwards. We've arrived at the mine Oregon. Come on, let's wipe out the Dragon Sect. Wuxia exclaimed as he looked ahead. Picking up speed, he walked on with overflowing joy. Beside him were 3 supreme elders from the Donghua sacred sect, and more than 100 of their inborn experts followed behind. For the sake of annihilating the dragon sect, all the top-notch experts within Donghua sacred sect had been deployed. "Old Zhou, we're here." From a distance of more than 1,000 meters away came Nie Wuya's bellowing laughter as he shouted ahead. The figures did not respond to Nie Wuya's call as the group approached at lightning speed. This made Nie Wuya frown in bewilderment before his confusion was overtaken by an ominous premonition. "There's bloodthirst." Suddenly, one of the elders yelped with locked brows. "Oh no, there are dead bodies ahead," he shouted after looking ahead. "What? Don't tell me," the crowd muttered upon sensing a bad omen. Everyone began to accelerate and hastened over to the mine Oregon. From a distance of about 1,000 meters away, their faces darkened instantly upon the sight up front. In fact, their faces were beyond gloomy. They shuddered at the numerous dead bodies of their once acquaintance. "Old Zhou," an elder shrieked with bloodshot eyes as he eyed the area beneath a nearby tree. With one leap, he arrived right beside the dead body and cried out. "What? To think even the Supreme Elder is—" The inborn experts gasped in shock. They met their counterparts with eyes full of trepidation. A Supreme Elder had been killed along with 15 inborn experts. The Donghua sacred sect had never incurred such losses in the past 50 years. "The spirit array has been compromised. To think, the spirit array has been compromised." An elder screeched with a burdened expression as he glanced in the direction of the spirit array. "To think the spirit array has been breached. And all it took was 10 minutes, a mere 10 minutes. A voice gasped. "It's a form of antagonizing. It's blatant what the dragon sect is doing now, antagonizing us. Of all days, they chose to do so today in order to spite us explicitly." An inborn expert let out a deep growl. Even the 100-odd experts from the Donghua sacred sect looked on with ghastly expressions. This was beyond antagonizing, this was a tight slap to the face. What shocked them the most was the fact that even their supreme elder, an unparalleled expert of the Dan realm, had been killed as well. Dan realm experts were few and far between. Needless to say, killing them was even more unimaginable. Nie Wuya took in one deep breath. With bloodshot eyes, he let out a growl to the skies. "We, Donghua sacred sect, are at extreme odds with you, Dragon King and Dragon Sect." As all experts from the Donghua sacred sect arrived at the Donghua spiritual or mine, the online thread which Mo Yuan had posted went viral all over the Underworld forum. This came 5 minutes after the thread posted by disciples of the Donghua sacred sect had caused a wave-like sensation amongst all the martial artists. While they were still busy discussing the annihilation of the dragon sect, the emergence of a new post brought a twist to the outcome. At the sight of the numerous dead bodies of the Donghua sacred sect members, everyone who saw the post gasped in utter shock. "This outfit is the attire of the Donghua attendants. The attendants of the Donghua sacred sect are all inborn experts. To think they've been slain. So many to add. There's too many, more than a dozen. Those are disciples of the Donghua sacred sect. More than 100 of them have been killed. The photo of this elder has been posted individually. Perhaps this elder is more esteemed than the rest. Goodness, wasn't it just earlier when the Donghua sacred sect was about to annihilate the dragon sect? Just what exactly happened? Goodness, just what exactly happened? Earlier on, the Donghua sacred sect was still talking about wiping out the dragon sect. How is it that more than a dozen inborn experts from the Donghua sacred sect have since been killed within split seconds?" The martial artists gagged in shock and fear as they scrolled through the various photos. It seems then that there had been a major twist to the outcome. The Donghua sacred sect had not annihilated the dragon sect. Instead, the dragon sect had killed 100-odd disciples of Donghua sacred sect, along with more than a dozen of its inborn experts. Shocking, simply shocking. Yet, just as everyone was buzzing away in a heated discussion, one of them recognized the elder who had been accorded with an individual photo. This was the supreme elder of the Donghua sacred sect, an awe-inspiring existence of the Dan realm, an unparalleled expert of his time. Everyone gasped upon the confirmation of the news. To think that the supreme elder of the Donghua sacred sect had been killed. While everyone eventually came to gradual terms with the news, a post made by an individual sent the entire underworld into a whirl of deep thought and shock. Within the entire underworld, the existence of an unparalleled expert is considered top-notch while their demise is even rarer. To the point where there hasn't even been one within the past decade and beyond. Yet just recently these unparalleled experts have fallen one by one. These include Ancestor Qiao of the Qiao clan, 2 Supreme Elders from the Medical Saint Sect, the Supreme Elder of the Shengling Sect, Lord Ossein of the Remains, as well as the Supreme Elder of the Donghua Sacred Sect. Of these 6 unparalleled experts, 5 have died at the hands of the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. As everyone went through the statistics, they came to a sudden realization which sent chills down their spines. Indeed. Other than the death of a Supreme Elder from the Shengling Sect, which diabolism was responsible for, the demise of the other unparalleled experts of the Dan realm were all attributed to the Dragon King. In less than half a year, 5 unparalleled experts had died at the hands of the Dragon King. Terminator of the unparalleled experts. This Dragon King is simply invincible. Regardless of who they are or their prowess, all those who antagonized him have been killed. To fight till one perishes. It seems that the Dragon Sect has really gone all out with the Donghua Sacred Sect till one perishes. Killing an unparalleled expert along with a dozen or so inborn experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect. It's definitely bloodshed this time. It seems like either one or the other between the Donghua Sacred Sect and the Dragon Sect will have to perish. But even if they can annihilate the Dragon Sect, the Donghua Sacred Sect is bound to suffer massive losses. No one saw this coming. To think that the Dragon King and his Dragon Sect have wiped out a huge number of experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect after annihilating the remains. The acts of this Dragon King are the Dragon King style. I don't care if you're from the Orthodox sects or diabolism. Just don't antagonize me. For those who do, death shall await you. Rather offend the King of Hades than the Dragon King. Chapter 530, The Arrival of the Golden Swordfish Race. Chapter 530, The Arrival of the Golden Swordfish Race. The entire underworld was in a frenzy after the Dragon Sect annihilated a group of experts from the Donghua Sacred Sect. Everyone could only heave a sigh helplessly. The major battle between the Orthodox sects and diabolism was just about to erupt. The Dragon King annihilating the remains was undoubtedly an exceptional piece of good news. However, he had also killed a group of experts from Donghua Sacred Sect, denting the overall strength of the alliance of the Orthodox sections. We could only pin our hopes on the battle tomorrow between the sect leader of Donghua Sacred Sect, Nie Wushuang, and Emperor Qi from diabolism. This battle will dictate the fate of the entire underworld. I really hope that sect leader Nie Wushuang will win. In this case, diabolism would have no choice but to go into seclusion once again. At night, the attention of the martial artists in the underworld had shifted from the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect to the major battle the next day. Everyone was gloomy and feeling a little worried. Since Emperor Qi of diabolism had dared to challenge sect leader Nie Wushuang, it would only mean that Emperor Qi had a strength that was close to Nie Wushuang. In the major battle the next day, no one could guarantee that Nie Wushuang would emerge victorious. After all, the name of diabolism still instilled fear in the minds of many people. The strongest expert from the underworld, sect leader Nie Wushuang from Donghua Sacred Sect versus the strongest expert from diabolism, sect leader Nie Wushuang from Devil Corpse Palace. When Wang Xian arrived at River Town and saw the messages on the underworld forum, he couldn't help but show a little hesitation. All the martial artists in the entire underworld would likely be going to watch the life and death battle between the strongest existences. Let's go take a look tomorrow. A battle of this level isn't common, and I can also catch a glimpse of the strength of diabolism. Wang Xian thought to himself. He naturally wouldn't skip such a grand occasion. Bzz. At this moment Wang Xian's phone rang. When he picked it up, he was surprised to learn that it was from Mo Qinglong. What happened? Wang Xian accepted the call without hesitation. Dragon King, Prime Minister Turtle and the other experts have been revived. Mo Qinglong's voice sounded from the other end of the phone. This was a pleasant surprise for Wang Xian. They are revived? What is their strength level now? Wang Xian asked in anticipation. Considering that they were gathering energy for revival in the dragon transformation pool, their strength would likely experience a substantial boost. Prime Minister Turtle and the other leaders have reached the budding realm. As for the rest, they are largely in the Dan realm and inborn realm. Mo Qinglong answered. Budding realm. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. Now that Prime Minister Turtle, Roving Heavens, Roving Yuxia and the rest had reached the budding realm, it would mean that there were roughly a dozen-odd budding realm existences among the Dragon Palace members. A dozen-odd level 12 existences and a group of Dan realm experts was sufficiently strong. Wang Xian's eyes gleamed with agitation. With this level of strength, not many forces could stand up against them, even on the international stage. At the very least, all the forces he encountered in Dubai previously wouldn't be a match for him. How did the guidance of the Golden Swordfish race go? Asked Wang Xian. Dragon King, they have no issues with interacting with humans. Moreover, they have high intelligence. It shouldn't be a problem if you want to send them onto land. Mo Qinglong answered. Wang Xian nodded his head, hesitating for a moment before continuing. You can come back now. Bring the Golden Swordfish race with you. Yes, Dragon King. We should be able to reach River Town by 2 a.m. Mo Qinglong nodded his head. Wang Xian hung up the phone and knocked on the table with his hand. The Golden Swordfish race could take on human form. Wang Xian was prepared to let them handle some forces on the seas, starting from the disordered region. Besides that, he was prepared to gather resources for the upgrade of the Dragon Palace. Among the Golden Swordfish race, there was a level 12 budding realm existence, 5 at the Dan realm, and the rest were at the Inborn realm. In total, there were over 150 of them. This force was sufficiently strong. Looking at the time, Wang Xian noticed that it was already past 10 p.m. He hesitated for a moment before walking towards the villa. When Wang Xian entered the villa, he instantly picked up Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue's presence. What should we do, Sister Qingyue? Now that the foreign girl is acting like this every day, what should we do? She's trying to get on our good books every day. Tiske. She's even a princess from Dubai. However, it still feels pretty good to have a princess trying to curry favor from us. What's the matter, Shuqing? Are you going to give in? How can that be possible? I would never give in. Tiske. It's all Xiao Xian's fault. Alright. This scumbag has been running out every day recently. Do you think he will bring another girl back in a few days? The two of them were conversing in a room. When Guan Shuqing made that statement, Wang Xian could feel both of them sitting up on the bed instantly. That's a real possibility. All dragons are lustful and this is fully on display with him. Lan Qingyue gritted her teeth. The sounds of her teeth grinding gave Wang Xian a chill down his spine. If he dares to bring another girl back, we shall not talk to him. Not for eternity. Guan Shuqing grumbled furiously. Wang Xian, who was standing outside, couldn't help but rub his nose. He hesitated for a moment before tiptoeing towards their room. While the two of them were having an emotional conversation, Wang Xian appeared before the door and removed all his clothes. Hello, I'm back. Wang Xian pushed open the door, shouting while naked and pouncing onto the bed directly. You. Guan Shuqing and Lan Qingyue, who had been chatting, were stunned. Get out of here. I'm not going to. Scumbag. You are a pervert. Yes, I'm a pervert. You. Woo. Wang Xian enjoyed the great feelings of being conquered. Scram. While he was reliving the excitement 3 hours later, he was kicked off the bed. Looking at the two furious girls, Wang Xian walked out with a sheepish smile. Soon. Everything will be resolved soon. If it isn't this time, it will be the next. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. Returning to the floating island, he waited for Mo Qinglong's arrival. Currently, Wang Xian wouldn't even feel the slightest bit of fatigue even if he did not sleep for 10 full days. 2 a.m. A boat approached the floating island slowly. On the island, figure after figure jumped off the boat. Over 100 burly figures that were over 2 meters tall had landed on the island. They looked around the island curiously. Dragon King. When Wang Xian walked over, everyone went on their knees and greeted him respectfully. You may rise. Wang Xian looked towards Mo Qinglong before turning to the Golden Swordfish race. Your name will be Roving Sword from here onwards. You will be responsible to lead the entire Golden Swordfish race. Wang Xian gave the leader of the Golden Swordfish race a name. They were covered in a layer of golden scales and held incomparably sharp longswords in their hands. The shape was slightly different from typical longswords. The golden glow of their bodies also felt extremely sharp. Their long swords were connected to their arms. These were the sharp weapons they'd had on their heads previously. The might of these long swords would differ based on their strength level. They could match weapons of a similar level and were insanely powerful. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.